let me start again. Ladies and gentlemen of the Balto League Discord, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to the amazing Simon Wells. We obviously can't see you guys at the moment, so I assume you're clapping and whooping and cheering. So, Simon, would you like to just say hello and introduce yourself?
Hi, yeah, coming to you live from sunny California, and yeah, great to be with you guys, and looking forward to this.
Fantastic, thank you. And obviously, you guys know me. I'm going by my real name today, Adam. And the guys know me as my screen name AC usually, or Canis. And then there's Angela up the top there, who normally
Yeah.
is, of course, the Husky.
Yeah, it's our great pleasure to have Simon here.
Well, it's fun to be here.
Simon, if it's okay with you, I have written a couple of words just to get this going, just to set the picture. So thank you so much for joining us. I genuinely, I don't think I can truly find the words to tell you what it really means to have you here. When I, and no doubt everybody who's watching this or whoever is going to watch, first watched a beautiful film about a courageous wolf dog, that I didn't think for one moment that we would actually be discussing the movie and watching it live with the director who's responsible for making it. and it really is wonderful. Thank you so much. You'll find that most of us who are here are the original kids who went to the cinemas, who saw it in the 1995, 1996, and we latched onto it and we're still talking. We have younger members here as well, and it's testament to the film that it just shows that newer generations are constantly discovering this wonderful film and connecting to it. Before we do get going, I just want to say a couple of words about a couple of absent friends. It's a bit of a sad tone. I apologize this early on in the celebration, but we lost a fan not long ago called Meeku, and it would be, I just wanted to mention his name. Perhaps by mentioning him, he can join us here in spirit in some way, because it's something he would have loved to have been part of. But that's the sad bit out of the way. What I'd like to do then is pass over to Angela, who will tell you, hopefully, a little bit about the club and where it's come from and so on.
Oh goodness, wish I'd made a few more notes for that. But basically, I started this whole thing in 1999. I was, even though I saw the movie a couple years earlier, I was a big fan. It stayed with me for a long time. And when when it was time to go look for a community, I couldn't find one at the time. I'd looked on Yahoo groups, didn't see any, because at the time, that was the easiest thing to join. And so I started one. So I didn't know how many people would join us or anything like that, but to my pleasure, people started trickling in. We set things up, like Adam was one of my first members here, and a few others. You guys know who you are. And we organized everything. We stayed in touch for years. I think one of the biggest successes we had was like our weekly chats every Saturday, and we worked out what time would work for everybody. We've had people come from United States, Europe, Asia, South America. I'm not sure what continent we haven't touched yet, but yeah, it's just basically worldwide. We met in person. We've had little meetups. We tried to plan one for the 30th, but it didn't quite work out. Things are a little topsy-turvy, but we've had smaller meetups. It's been great. When I started this when I was 16, I had no idea I'd still be here in my early 40s still doing this, and I couldn't have imagined today that we'd actually get you here and chat with us, Simon.
Well, I gotta say, I'm thrilled and kind of amazed that you guys exist, and that a film that I did 30 years ago kind of still matters at all, because you put your heart and soul into something, but it goes out, and in this particular case, this movie didn't perform terribly well. It was a sort of sad box office. They made a bunch of sequels for video, but it was never that successful. And so it is actually genuinely touching to find that there are people that this movie really connected with and still connects with. That's just an amazing thing. And I gotta say, very proud that it's had that effect. That's kind of great.
I mean, absolutely. I would say it's one of the out of all the movies, especially at the time, it's like one of the more unique ones. Like you watch it, it kind of stays with you. It's not like anything else I've ever watched.
It's funny. I mean, I work in animation, and every now and again, I come across somebody who, you know, I mean, a lot of people know the film and say, "Oh yeah, that was a nice film." And every now and again, there's somebody who goes, "Oh my God, that film really, really touched me."
Mm.
Sadly, there's a woman I work with called Genevieve Sai who really wanted to be part of this. She's a storyboard artist. I've just worked with her on a film called Forgotten Island, which is coming out of DreamWorks next year, and she, you know, she is a huge Balto fan. I mean, she was just kind of out of control when she realized that, you know, I had things like, you know, copies. I have my original script pages, my thumbnails and stuff in them,
Wow.
and so, you know, I lent them to her so she could take a look at them all. And anyway, yeah, she is, by the way, herself an extraordinarily good storyboard artist, and was also the character designer on Wild Robot. So yeah, big shout out to Genevieve, who is doing family stuff today, but will doubtless watch the recording of this. But
Wonderful.
yeah,
I,
it's kind of cool when you meet people who it really matters to.
mm. It's yeah, I mean it's wonderful that there's clearly people within your professional world who perhaps have been influenced by the film and taken it that extra step by getting involved and taking that career in animation. That must be quite quite strange for you sometimes, I'd imagine, that people pop out of nowhere and say, "Oh my God, you're Simon Wells."
Well, I mean, the strange thing is, having been in this business for 40 years now, I
Mm,
am working with people who weren't born when I
mm,
started my career, you know. In fact, weren't born when I directed my first movie. Um, but yeah, no, it's I mean, my two daughters are involved in the business as well. My
mm,
eldest daughter, who was born actually a couple of years after Balto came out, just before Prince
mm.
of Egypt came out. She's now a production coordinator at Walt Disney Animation, a job she got, by the way, completely without any involvement from me. I had no connections there to get her in. And she's just worked on Zootopia 2, which is
Oh
heading
well.
to be the highest grossing animated movie ever, which is
Mm,
deserved. It's a damn good movie.
mm,
But she, prior to that, she worked on Wish and Strange World, which didn't
mm,
perform nearly as well. And my younger
mm.
daughter, who is a very talented storyboard artist, still looking for a full-time gig, but yeah, she's pursuing this as her business as well.
Mm, mm. It's amazing. It's lovely that obviously they've continued to follow in your footsteps, and now they're going to have their own journey, creating their own magic. Going back to what you said about obviously Balto underperforming, the amazing thing for me, I felt certainly, just speaking for myself, is it didn't get released in the UK in cinemas on a mainstream platform. I believe Sky Cinema, Sky TV at the time, picked it up, and they bought the royalties. So that was the premiere in the UK, as far as I could tell.
I think
And
there was actually I think there was a cinema release, because
mm,
my mother-in-law actually booked her local cinema in Solihull,
mm,
and they played it
mm,
for her. She was a primary school teacher, and
mm,
they collected the whole primary school together
mm,
and did a special
mm.
screening, which I went to when
Oh
the film
wow.
came out. So yeah, there was there was a very brief cinematic release.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I mean, I will kick myself if it was at the cinema and I didn't get to see it. I saw it on TV originally. It must have been just after Christmas in 1996, and I guess I was about that age where you're kind of growing out of cartoons, and you think you're a teenager and you think you're an adult. And I was on my own in the house, and I was flicking through the channels looking for something to watch, and I caught Balto about half an hour in, and I can't tell you exactly what it was, but something about it just connected. Perhaps it was Kevin Bacon's voice. He's not his voice isn't a normal voice actor sort of
Mm.
voice, and I had sort of that rougher kind of feel about it. And I just became captivated by it. And I watched this movie, and Sky would repeat them on a regular basis. So I caught it in its entirety and recorded it on VHS. And it was like nobody else had seen it. It was like I was the only person, certainly within my network, who knew about this thing, this film. And a couple of close friends I mentioned to at the time, but it just really felt no one had seen it. And you know, growing up at that early stage of the internet and thinking, well, I wonder if was this real? Was this a fever dream? You know, and going on to I guess it was Yahoo search engine back then, and doing a search, and I came across Angela's group and joined it and connected, and it was like, wow, there really is quite a large community of people out there, certainly back then, who loved it just as much. Many of us created websites. There's fan websites out there, which are horrendously unupdated you know, from back then. And the community has changed, and people have left, and new people have come in. But you know, although it didn't perform fantastically well in cinemas, there's something about it which clearly captivates people, because here we all are.
Oh, quick technical note. We've been working together on the Discord. We've raised the limit to 99 people, but everybody has to have their video off. So that's the solution we came up with. And we had a couple people help us add capacity, just to let you guys know.
Perfect. Well done. Good stuff.
Yeah, they're all listening and really, really enjoying it so far. Thanks, guys.
Okay, brilliant. So we've got a couple of questions for you, Simon, if it's okay, before we get into the film. We thought it might be nice to get a couple in sort of about yourself, just to learn a little bit more about you as a human being, if that's okay. So just fairly standard stuff, really. What's your biggest inspiration within your career? What really inspired you to do what you do?
That's a complicated question, actually. I've always drawn pictures. I mean, back when I was in school, my parents were terribly worried because I would draw and didn't do my schoolwork, and you know, little did they know that those kind of silly little sketches I was doing in the corners of my rough book would actually end up being a career. But I didn't really watch movies until, I mean, I went to art school, but I had the intention of being an illustrator. And as it turned out, the illustration tutor didn't want me on the illustration course. I don't know why. I think I was just a troublesome kind of asshole kid. And I ended up doing a thing called audiovisual design. And there was a terrific tutor, a guy in a wheelchair called John Grace, who looked at my stuff and said, you know, you draw, maybe you should try some animation, and let's try and get you some work experience. And so he just sort of looked up, like, what's the best animation house in England? And that was Richard Williams Animation. And so he wrote to Dick, and Dick wrote back and said, no, go away. And he wrote and said, no, you should see this guy. And so they said, well, okay, send me a portfolio of his work. And so I just threw together a bunch of stuff and sent it off to Dick. And as luck would have it, when the people in the studio who were looking at this kind of folder of shit that I'd sent were looking through it, Dick happened to walk through the room, looked at it, and went, oh, we should give that guy a job, and and walked off. And so I kind of had a job in animation coming straight out of school, straight out of college, knowing very little, in fact, nothing at all about animation. I had no animation training, but there really weren't any animation schools at that time. So I moved down to London, got this, was working on this job, and I was sharing a flat with a guy I'd been at college with, Gavin Blair, who was really, really into movies. So we used to go and see a lot of movies. And I think the thing that, because working at Dick Williams, I was working on commercials, doing adverts for, Count Chocula cereal and stuff like that. And we went to see this movie, Back to the Future. And it's one of those moments when, kind of scales fall from your eyes and you go, oh, holy God, this is what I need to be doing. Back to the Future is still an amazing film. If any of you have not seen it, watch it tonight. It is one of the best movies ever made. Still, it's fun, it's exciting. It basically covers, all the ground. And even though it was made in the mid '80s, it still plays well today. I remember the great fun thing of sitting my two daughters down, Meredith and Tegan, sitting them down to watch it when they were, I guess, about 7 and 9 or something like that. And they're sitting there going, oh, why are we watching this movie? And it goes on for like first 10-15 minutes, and it's like all this stuff as this kid, and he plays in a rock band, and he wants to borrow the car to go to. It's like, why are we watching this? And about half an hour it starts to really warm up, and by the end of the movie they're on the edge of their seats like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? And so I was sort of thinking, oh, I should be working in movies. How am I going to get to work in movies? And then, like, within 6 months of that happening, the guys who produced and directed that movie walked through the front door where I was working and hired my boss. And so I just kind of got lifted up and into the business in a way that, talk about having your dreams manifest. It was quite bizarre. And by then, I'd learned quite a lot about animation working directly under Dick Williams. He's incredibly good teacher, very, very generous with all his knowledge. And I don't know. So I sort of fell backwards into the film industry at a time when you got to bear in mind there was like nobody in animation. I mean, there was there were basically two studios. There was there was Disney and there was Don Bluth, and that was pretty much it. There were no other feature studios. So all the people who worked in England on Who Framed Roger Rabbit were people who worked in the commercial industry. So yeah, it was kind of an incredibly lucky sort of concatenation of events that threw me in. And through that, I met Bob Zemeckis and obviously Spielberg. And by then, I'd achieved a position with Dick Williams where I was basically helping him out on a lot of commercials. I was directing commercials and sometimes working directly with Dick on commercials. And so I'd become that kind of like, if it was anything Dick didn't want to do, it's like, get Simon to do it. So like if it were client meetings Dick didn't want to do, he just wouldn't show up, and then they'd throw me in. And bear in mind, I'm like this 25, 26-year-old kid. I know nothing, but have this arrogant belief in my own ability to do stuff that I clearly didn't know how to do. But anyway, so Who Framed Roger Rabbit starts up, and I become an animator on that show. And then by virtue of doing basically more animation than anybody else, because I draw fast, I ended up being a supervising animator. I didn't actually supervise anybody else at all. I was just, the guy who produced about 20% of the animation in the film. So so then kind of that film shut down, and Disney decided they weren't going to continue to run a studio in London, and a whole bunch of the animators were offered places at Disney, and so a lot of them moved out here. I didn't. They did offer me, but I just didn't want to move at the time. And
I apologize,
oh,
Simon.
wow.
I've been being trashed by a horse.
Oh no, that's great. What's his
Chadley,
name?
This is Chadley. He's a German Shepherd.
All right.
He's just knocked Balto over, but never mind.
Beat him up.
Apologies, Simon. Mild distraction for you.
No, so anyway, so yeah, there weren't that many people in animation, and the relationship between Spielberg and Don Bluth had kind of fallen apart. They'd done American Tail together, and then they'd done Land Before Time. And during Land Before Time, there were considerable creative differences, shall we say. And And so Spielberg didn't really want to carry on working. He wanted to carry on making animated movies, but he didn't want to carry on working with Don Bluth. And so they cooked up this idea of actually starting a studio in London. And I okay, I got to tell the legend here, because it's one of these things where I still kind of can't believe it happened. I got a job working for Bob Zemeckis on Back to the Future 2 and 3, coming out of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I finished Who Framed Roger Rabbit, having animated on the show. And at the end of the day, I did about 5 minutes of animation, and I'm thinking, if I carry on like this, my entire working career is going to fit on a VHS cassette. And I wanted to kind of have more effect on larger parts of more movies. So I thought, well, I really enjoy storyboarding, and maybe I should be working in storyboard in live action. And Bob offered me a job on Back to the Future 2 and 3, and so I did a bunch of design work and storyboards on that. So, for instance, the whole train sequence at the end of Back to the Future 3, Bob literally dictated, and I took little thumbnail notes and did all the boards for that sequence. And also, Marty getting the almanac back from Biff when they're going through the tunnel, which ironically I now live about 4 miles away from the tunnel they shot that in. And yeah, and I did some design work as well. Actually, I can show you up here. That's there it. Oh, hang on.
Oh wow! Yes,
that is
Wow.
the train from Back to the Future 3 that I did design work on.
Wow.
Nice.
But anyway, so yeah, so I'm working on that show, and I'm working with a bunch of other guys in trailers that are in a car park, and I have to walk through Spielberg, the lot that is Spielberg's Amblin buildings that are on the corner of Universal lot, to get to the bungalow that Bob Zemeckis has as his office at the time. So I'm walking through, and I see this car pulling into Amblin, and I recognize Spielberg because I had met him a couple of times on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Actually, again, sorry, show and tell. Hang on. Here is a picture of me with Dick Williams, Steven Spielberg, Bob Zemeckis, Robert Watts. That's me.
Nice.
That's Steve Starkey.
Wow.
Look at that.
That's oh god, hang on, I'm having a blank on names. Ken Ralston, who was the guy at Industrial Light and Magic, and Don Hahn, now big name producer, went on to produce Beauty and the Beast and a few things like that. Anyway, so I've met Spielberg before, and I'm walking through, and I see him in his car. I'm thinking, okay, I gotta be cool, I'm not gonna gawk, so there I am wearing my Ray-Bans and walking along, and he pulls up and he parks, and then I hear this voice shouting, Simon, is that Simon under those shades? And I turn around, and Spielberg is literally climbing over a hedge to come and talk to me, and says, hey, look, we're thinking of starting a studio in London. Do you want to direct a movie for me? I was like, how often does that happen to anybody in the universe? But so yeah, it was kind of like, oh, I guess I'm directing a movie for Spielberg now then, huh? It sounds kind of stupid, but it really, as far as I know, it really happened. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, they teamed me up with Phil Nibbling, who'd also been one of the supervising animators on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Steve Hickner, who has remained a lifelong friend, who was our producer. He'd also worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. He was actually the genius with the photocopier. All of that stuff when, for instance, Eddie is going through the Toontown tunnel and going into Toontown, there's all these bits that are from the old Merry Melodies, Disney shorts. And Steve was a guy who went through the morgue, which is the Disney archive, finding all the original drawings and photocopying them and pegging them up and making them into cycles and so on for that part of the show. And yes, of course, Steve then produced for us 3 movies in London, and then came out back to LA, and was one of my co-directors on Prince of Egypt. He now teaches at Ringling College in Florida. So yeah, back to your initial question, which is biggest influences. I kind of accumulate little people on my shoulder. That the sort of the cartoon thing where the devils and the angels on your shoulder. So I still to this day have a Dick Williams who pokes me in the cheek when I do the drawing wrong, or there's compositional stuff, and there's a Spielberg and there's a Bob Zemeckis. I've worked on several movies with Bob Zemeckis, including one that he produced that I directed, and so yeah, I kind of try and steal from everybody that I work with or admire. There are people like Jim Cameron who I've never actually worked with or met actually, but I admire his filmmaking technique, and I've stolen as much of that as I can. So yeah, I think it's that era, the sort of 1980s era of directors, that are probably the biggest influence on kind of what I do. But then there's people like Jeffrey Katzenberg, who I worked closely with the whole time that he was running DreamWorks Animation, and learned a tremendous amount about kind of making a balanced story and what matters to an audience. Katzenberg had a sort of extraordinary ability to understand what the audience wanted to see on screen. So yeah, great guy.
Sorry, that's the dog.
That's all right. Does the dog have a question?
He's very noisy. I think he does, but he speaks a different language. Yeah, you do, don't you? Go out though. He's also deaf, so he doesn't know how loud he is. Wonderful. So thank you for that. It's I'm just mesmerized. I'll be honest. I'm hearing you tell me stories about just casually Steven Spielberg saying, "Is that you?" It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It was kind of incredible at the time, and and the fact that he still even remembers who I am. I saw him at some screening about 6 or 7 years ago, and again, I'm trying to sort of sit there and be cool, and like I don't want to try and draw attention and go, "Oh, it's me," and he turns around and goes, "Oh, hey, Simon," it's like. Yeah. Anyway,
I think you might have answered the next question, because it's a simple one. Just what's your favorite movie? Our favorite movie. It sounds like it might be Back to the Future, but
I think that's the one that I don't know if it would be my number one favorite, but it's certainly up there in my collection of top 10 movies. Yeah, I'm a sucker for any of the sort of action adventure movies. So like the Terminator movies are great, the Alien movies are great. Yeah, but hell, there's movies that come out today that a movie I was absolutely astonished by was Prey, which wasn't even ever theatrically released. It's in the Predator franchise, and I've watched all of the Predator movies, and they're okay. The first one was quite good, and they, the Predator versus Alien, it's like, yeah, okay, it's fun. And then Prey is an extraordinarily involving, really, very personal, and you get on board with the main characters so much. That wonderful actress, Mid Thunder, I can't remember what her first name is, but she was fantastic. And I don't know if it's open with you, but the same director followed up with Predator Badlands, which bizarrely is this kind of 4-quadrant film version of a Predator movie. It's it's really wonderful. It's I don't know if you guys seen it, but it's essentially Shrek. I shall leave you to see the movie and see the connections, but I came out of it going, oh my god, this is basically Shrek.
Wow. So I've seen Prey, and I agree with you 100% on all of that, and
Yeah,
I loved it because obviously they actually use Native American actors as well, which is wonderful. and it's clearly set in a timeline. It's clearly set in a much earlier timeline because the Predator is using much more primitive weaponry and armor and so on. It seemed like a lot of thought had really gone into it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and likewise with Predator Badlands, it kind of all hangs together, and it's one of those immensely satisfying movies where everything that gets set up gets paid off, and there are little bookends to it all, and you know there's a conflict that is set up in the kind of prologue, which then there's an epilogue that pays that off, and you just look at it and go, yeah, that's just a damn good piece of storytelling. I mean, it's not high art, but it's really satisfying cinema. By contrast, you know, similar thing we just saw Hamnet, which I don't know if you there was a terrific book came out like a year or two ago, and I love the book, and it's one of those books you think, how are you going to turn that into a film that works? And the Chloe Zhao's film Hamnet is just superb. It is delightful. It is really, really emotional, and it's the kind of movie I look at and go, well, I couldn't possibly make that. I just don't know how you do that. So yeah, I at least when I look at Predator Badlands, I go, oh, okay, I get it. I understand the levers, I understand the mechanism, I understand the structure of that. But yeah, I look at something like Hamnet, and it's just like, nope, that is deeply moving in a way that I don't know how you craft that.
Wow. I'm going to make a note of it to have a look at it, because I've never seen that one either. I don't know. Have you seen it, Angela, at all?
No, I've got to add some movies to my list to see.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
The book is also just a beautiful book, and significantly, Chloe Zhao worked with the writer of the book to write the screenplay. So yeah, it's very true to the original. Excuse me.
Wonderful. Here's an interesting question, which most of these questions initially have been submitted by one of our members, Neil, who may or may not be able to turn his microphone on later. But it's this is one for myself. Do you miss hand-drawn traditional animation? Because obviously most animated movies nowadays are not that, they're CGI, of course. But do you miss the traditional Balto spirit style of animation at all?
That's a difficult one. I have enormous admiration for drawing and hand-drawn animation, but one of the things that always upset me with, you know, even the best animated films is how there's a lot of stuff that drifts off model. And you know, hell, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, there are like 5 distinctly different rabbits in that movie. It all ties together because he's a big white rabbit with a red, you know, suspenders on, so like there's nobody else who looks anything like him, so there's no confusion. But I remember it always being a thing that bothered me, like you know, I can still to this day watch, say, Spirit Stallion of the Cimarron, and I can spot all of Mr. Baxter's shots, because they're so well drawn. And then there are other stuff where it's like, yeah, that's struggling a bit. And so as someone who draws myself, it bothers me quite a lot. So what I like about CG films is they stay on model, and you know, you can do some very subtle stuff. And hell, CG films now, the level of kind of artistry. I worked on Puss in Boots 2 relatively recently with Joel Crawford and Daniel Mercado, and you know, that has a distinctly kind of painted look about it. It no longer has the kind of polished, plasticky kind of feel of the early CG, and it's absolutely as expressive as anything hand drawn. And it's interesting how many hand drawing guys moved across very comfortably into CG. I remember actually having this discussion with Christophe Sarand, who has always been one of the animators I admire enormously, not just for his animation, but also just his sheer draftsmanship. And I said, "Do you miss drawing?" And he said, "Oh God, no. I used to struggle. I used to work so hard on the drawing, and I don't have to do that anymore. I can just concentrate on the animation." And it's like,
Mm.
"Oh, I always thought you were really, really good at drawing." It's like, no, he just worked until, you know, the blood dribbled out of his forehead, to get that good. So yeah, you know, I know there are people like Rodolphe Guénedin, who, again, one of the most extraordinary artists I've ever met and worked with. Um, you know, he's still a caveman. He doesn't want to work in. He wants to draw pictures and not work in CG. Um,
Mm.
I mean, I still draw all the time because I'm doing storyboards, and it's by far the fastest way of getting the stuff down. And you can,
Mm.
you know, you can produce scribbly drawings which are expressive, and you know, and sketch in the backgrounds and a little bit of lighting and stuff like that. So I've never learned how to do the CG stuff, but I directed it, and I know a
Mm.
lot of extraordinarily good animators who do brilliant stuff in it. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I'm kind of I'm kind of a turncoat. I welcomed the whole CG thing. I mean, the first one that I guess I did. I did some storyboards on Ants, and the first Shrek, and that was in the very early days. And even then, I could see, like, yeah, but, you know, I think when DreamWorks did Sinbad's, you know, they should have done that CG. They shouldn't have done that as
Mm.
hand drawn. It did not look as good as it should have done, and would have
Mm.
looked a lot better.
Mm. Mm.
I just, that was very early days, and DreamWorks Animation didn't have the infrastructure to do all the CG stuff. Was at the time being done at their subsidiary company, Pacific Data
Mm.
Images, that they bought when they
Mm.
first set up. So PDI did, like, through Shrek 2, was all the CG stuff was done up at PDI. Apart from, I mean, we did some 3D stuff on props and some 3D environments in things like the Prince of Egypt. But yeah, I was I was ready to jump ship as early as anybody would let me.
That's fair enough. I mean, I guess there's pros and cons with both versions, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to suggest that I prefer one or the other myself, because I'm a big fan of animation in general. So it's lovely to have the nostalgia of the older style and newer films which have come out. Off the top of my head, there's Wolfwalkers, which was made by a
Yeah,
very small animation group in
in
Ireland, if I
Ireland,
believe.
yeah, and then
And
Klaus. Did you see Klaus?
yes,
That
yes.
was beautifully styled and incredibly
Mm.
well art directed. That was kind of
Mm.
a kind of an astonishing film that they could find
Mm.
enough artists to do that. I mean, that's the thing also. It's
Mm.
like, yeah, you can still find
Yes.
animators, but, you know, where are you going to find the assistants and the in-betweeners?
Mm. Yes, it's, I guess, the skills disappear
Yeah,
if they're not being
yeah.
used frequently at the end of the day. Brilliant. Last question from me, if that's okay, Simon,
Mhm.
before we move on. This is one from Neil. He says it's been a considerable time since, obviously, you've directed your own feature film. I think Mars Needs Mums was the last one.
Yep.
Have you got any plans to go back to a director's chair at all?
Uh, yes and no. I'm not going to direct for hire. I don't want to just do other people's movies. And one of the problems with animation is it's extraordinarily expensive. So you know, you're pretty much locked into doing it with a fairly large studio or somebody investing quite a lot of money. So I mean, I have friends who work in the kind of indie animation film area, and you're always struggling against budget to try and make something that looks, you know, in any way half decent. Um, I have written a couple of things. Actually, my younger daughter and I write together at the moment, and we have a thing that we're gonna take out. And actually, I'll give you a quick preview.
Mm. Oh, lovely.
This is this is purely the working title. but
Oh wow.
Nice.
Mad Rat,
Mad Rats.
it's basically it's a
Look at
post-apocalyptic.
Oh
I
wow.
did kind of a storybook thing of yeah. So which
Yeah.
we're going to take out in the new year, and we had a thing we took out a couple of years ago, which was an alternative history of the Alamo with giant bats. It was kind of it really was more of a live action film. We took it around all the studios. We got some fairly good reception, but it's not the kind of thing anyone's going to put money into in an animated movie in this day and age at the moment. But yeah, so yeah, I'll direct if I've written it. I have I've been connected to a number of live action projects, but the trouble is live action projects mostly don't happen. I mean, literally within 10 miles of where I'm sitting, there are 1,000 films that might happen, but probably won't. So likewise, my daughter and I wrote a horror movie, a live action horror movie, which I got a couple of producers still trying to find money for. They're currently doing a TV series that they also created. And when they've finished with that, like this coming year, they may get round to kind of make that happen. So yeah, I would direct. I got to say though, I live a very comfortable life drawing pictures for other people, and I get to work on a lot of fun movies. I'm working on Shrek 5 at the moment, and also Nico Bravo, both of which are coming out of DreamWorks in 27. They've both been announced. So and I get to work with some really incredibly talented and really smart people. And part of the thing is realizing when you work with people like Conrad Vernon, who he was one of the directors on Shrek 2, but he was pretty much the humor of Shrek 1. This is the guy who created, from whole cloth, he created the Gingy being interrogated scene. Do you know the Muffin Man? He is the voice of Gingy. He is the voice of Pinocchio. He wrote the Robin Hood song in that film. He wrote the Welcome to Dulac song. The guy is an extraordinary talent. And you work alongside some people and you go, oh yeah, they're actually smarter than I am, aren't they? Yeah. Likewise, Joel Crawford and Daniel Mikado. I've now worked on 3 movies with them, and they're incredibly appreciative of what I bring to the movie. But at the same time, I look at them and go, I've never been as good as you guys are. Their grasp of story, their ability to remain just unflappably nice to people. I mean, I don't know, I get angry. I get pissed off about stuff. These guys somehow, even when they're dealing with enormous frustrations, they're really pleasant. And people had to work incredibly hard to get Puss in Boots 2 finished on the schedule they had. And there was one animator who said, I have never worked as hard on any movie and had as much fun. And I look at that and go, yeah, okay, there's a level of professional envy that if I'm realistic, I don't think I'm ever going to be as good as those guys. So yeah, so part of me is a little bit kind of like, yeah, back when I started directing movies, I thought I was the best thing since sliced bread. And since then, I've worked with a lot of people who are an awful lot better at this than I am. So, the level of humility has sunk in eventually.
Brilliant. Right, Simon, that is basically our cue, I think, to consider starting the movie section of all of this, if that's okay with you. So just for everybody's watching's benefit as well, the idea is obviously it's the 30th anniversary of Balto being released, and one thing which I think most of people like us would agree is that Universal hasn't really done a great deal with the property of Balto. Although I've got a little bit of merchandise behind me, they didn't really seem to capitalize much on that in the day. And when the DVD format came out, we didn't really get like that special edition DVD, like Disney gets with all the extra bits in it, and most importantly, the director's commentary. So the idea behind this is obviously that the movie will play for everybody in real time fairly shortly, and you're welcome, Simon, to chat, and we'll talk over the top of it we've seen it a million times. We don't necessarily need to hear the dialogue.
Part of
So
time.
yeah, I lose track. My long-suffering wife here, she didn't know it existed until I came along, and I said I have to share a secret with you. And so
And she still married you.
so
Yeah.
There you go.
and she's still here 20 years later, and you know, with all of this stuff behind me.
And for a quick,
So
so I was gonna say, for a quick note, for
Mhm.
the recorded version, the audio is going to be off for that because, you know, YouTube copyright stuff.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay.
So it's just going to be us chatting away.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
that'd be the
Basically.
safest way. Because I don't know. Well, anybody's ever posted anything on YouTube, you never know when YouTube's going
Yeah,
to do.
you're going to be hit with a copyright
Yeah.
takedown notice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for the purpose of the recording, for people who will be watching this, obviously when it's not live, we can absolutely do a count in to when the movie starts. So if people have a copy of it ready to watch separate, then the video can run alongside them playing the film in some sort of format. So I'm sure the timings will probably work out. The beauty of this is, of course, as soon as I hit play, everybody's going to be able to see the movie at the same timing who logs on right now. So for everybody in Discord, you're going to need to click on that link, which is on the event, which I've set up at the top, and that will take you to the website. Or if Stefano's in, I'm sure he'll post it for everybody somewhere, so everyone can click on it. Password is Steel, lowercase. Simon, I believe you've still got it open.
I'm
Hopefully,
on already.
I can see.
Yep.
There's a lot of users on watching it already, I can see as well. So without further ado, let's do the count-in from the Universal logo. 3, 2, 1, pressing play now.
Would produce kind of a sense of, I don't know, dread in me somehow. Still to this day, there's a kind of slightly heightened heart rate, like, oh my God.
I did watch an interview with you, I believe, and you were talking about, actually, you were very stressed during this film, and it was about this point when you kind of realized stuff about yourself, and that perhaps this was a little bit of a bigger project than you realized when you
I
took
know,
it on.
Balto, there was some tough times on Balto, not as hard as doing Time Machine, but that's another story. So yeah, this is interesting. This is the first live action stuff I ever shot. And we went out and shot on location in New York with a child and a dog. It's like, a puppy at that. It wasn't even a trained dog. So it's like, yeah, could I make this any more difficult? But God bless Miriam Margulies, because she was just fantastic, and incredibly kind and nice to the kid as well. Kid was I don't know, I can't remember the kid's name. Damn it. But yeah, she was. It's very interesting because there came a point during the shooting when I went over to Miriam and I said, "You really get on well with kids. You must really like kids." And she said, "Can I tell you a secret? I loathe them." I was like, "Oh my God." Okay, well, you're doing a really good, because she carried on just being grandma to the kid the whole time.
Wow. I can almost hear her voice through you as you said that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And it's very funny because outside of when the kid wasn't around, she was one of the most foul-mouthed people I've ever met. No
amazing.
filters at all. She would say anything.
Famously so.
Yeah, God, I'm looking at this stuff and thinking, this is not well cropped. I shouldn't have shot it like that. But anyway, okay. I'm afraid there's going to be an awful lot of berating myself in bits of this movie, but
a lot of cringe, shall we say. It's it's the joy of 30 years experience, isn't it? I mean, if you didn't look back and it was perfect straight away, I mean, it is perfect as far as we're concerned. So her wig's not so perfect, actually. I'll say her wig is a little bit obvious. But
But yes, it's funny. This seems like cropped off at the bottom. Maybe, I don't know if it's. I don't know. Maybe something weird about your pirated version of this, but yeah.
It possibly is.
But that pan,
I should pay
the dolly
attention.
around and the going into the pan really worked well. I'm pleased with that. Oh boy, and the snow. This was the snow in this movie. Was some of the earliest particle systems, and so we actually we'd have the drawn shots, and then we were animating the particle stuff with sort of controlled on essentially a black screen, kind of estimating where they were going to relate to the animation, and then combining it later. That first shot, by the way, done by, and several of these shots were done by William Salazar, who became a big name animator at DreamWorks, and he was like a junior animator when this movie started, and he was freaked out at the idea that he was going to do the first shot in the movie. But part of the reason why, in particular, these shots at the beginning look so damn good is French animators. William was one of them, and as I mentioned, Rodolphe and several other guys who they just drew so beautifully, because they all came from Gobelin animation school in Paris, and well, many of them were taught by Christophe Sarand, and so yeah, the level of draftsmanship and anatomy and so on was just beautifully done.
It's what I love about this opening sequence as well. It's so three-dimensional, like the depth of field which you guys got, I assume, through layering backgrounds and foregrounds and so on.
Yeah, a lot of
absolutely stunning.
A lot of it's down to the art direction of Hans Barker. He did a beautiful job of just, I mean, he went through and did little thumbnail paintings about yay big. I wish I still had one or two of them, because they were just gorgeous. And then an amazing background department who, a surprisingly large number of these backgrounds are actually painted in oils, because oil paint has more kind of luminance, and so the snow just worked so much better than it did in watercolor. This animation by Christophe Sarand, by the way.
And of course, we've just had obviously the introduction of the main characters, which is a less than flattering view of Balto as he pops up.
Right. Yeah, I gotta feel this version. I'm sure it's cropping off a little bit more at the bottom than it should be. But anyway, you guys can check it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, another just little budgeting note. We actually had a thing where you could either we had to go through the whole movie with a fine-tooth comb, because we were working on like a $25 million budget, which $25 million sounds like quite a lot, but it's really not a lot in terms of an animated movie. You know, the equivalent Disney movies were 2 to 3 times that budget at the time. And actually, a horrifying inside story. Originally it was budgeted at 21 million, and we knew we couldn't do it for that. And so I had a horrifying week during which I had a call into Spielberg saying, in order to say we can't do it for 21, we need 25. And Spielberg, interestingly, is really not good with confrontation. And so he kept avoiding doing the phone call. And eventually he asked his assistant, do you know what this is about? And she said, yeah, Simon wants to talk to you about the budget. It needs to be 25. This is kind of a deal breaker. It's like, wait a minute, you're basically resigning me if I don't get $25 million. And Stephen said, okay, tell him he can have 25, but not a penny more. And like, shit, I'm kind of glad that I didn't have to be part of that. But
absolutely.
Anyway,
here's a question coming up for you, Simon. I think I might have emailed you about this one. There's a dog character in the background coming very shortly on a leash, and he's puzzled fans. Here he is, as he's walking by, and he lunges and he disappears. He's a very unique design compared to all the other background characters, and he looks so much like the original storyboards of Balto himself. And it's I've always wondered where he's come from.
He's a generic character. To be honest, he looks more like Scar in the way that he moves and so on. But yeah, I don't know. I'd actually forgotten that character was even there.
Yeah.
But I just remembered,
There
yeah,
he is.
the all of the sleds are actually CG as well. We did a 3D modeling of the sled,
Oh wow.
which is why it remains kind of as solid as it does.
Mm. It's so fluid though. I mean, you can't tell that
No.
is CG.
I would have
Yeah,
never
it's
known.
joined together very well. Yeah.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think
no,
this
this is
quite
crop one
cropped.
because I
Right.
would never have composed a shot like that, and I actually got
No,
the thumbnails
not
to prove this.
right.
Yeah.
I get take Stefano.
I gotta say, actually, looking at this film again, I gotta say the art direction is beautiful, and it's the color combinations are really, really well controlled.
I think I've read in countless interviews which you've done, to be honest, where Spielberg was very worried about the drab nature of what Winter
Yeah, he
Alaska
said
would
this is just going to be a bunch of dogs running around in snow. How is that going to be? How's that going to be visually interesting? And actually, we sent a whole bunch of copies of a whole bunch of Hans Barker's little paintings, and he was kind of astonished at the lighting that that he put in the colors and stuff. And I got a really nice letter from Spielberg at the end of the movie saying, that every frame is a painting. And he's not wrong. It's actually pretty. This interestingly, that little scene with the telegraph is a bit that was actually storyboarded by Phil Niblink, who I used to co-direct with. And we'd originally started this movie as co-directors, and then because we were also in the process of finishing We're Back, he peeled off and just carried on running We're Back, and I did this movie. But there are little bits and pieces that he boarded that remained in the movie.
And I guess somebody had the pleasure of animating every single one of these background characters who are watching the race and just sort of
the amount of motion in them is rather carefully chosen. Like they're dotted around, there are bits moving, but most of those are kind of, they're like a few frames, like 6 or 8 frames, and they cycle backwards and forwards, things like that. But there's just enough movement in there to make it look like the audience is alive. But in point of fact, most of it is held cells.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, again,
going back to
one of the things I'm actually kind of proud of with this movie is the level of kind of design we had to do in order to meet the budget. Because even with 25 million, it was pretty touch and go. So one of the things I was going to say was that we found that we could afford to have either shadows or footprints in the snow, but we couldn't have both. And so you'll find that there's 1 or 2 shots where there's both, but they're very, very, very few.
Yeah, it's quite subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, so you can get it
I was
here.
going back to the backgrounds. Oh, sorry. I think I'm lagging a little bit with all the streaming. We're doing backwards and forwards, so apologies if I interrupted you. I was just going to go back to the backgrounds about what you were saying about the colours, the depth, and the design. I'm fortunate enough to own quite a few original backgrounds, which I think possibly even have your OK mark on them. If it looks like Simon, it looks like OK.
OK, Simon. Yeah, everything. I approved everything. Made sure it was a way of making sure it really had been, rather than it just being kept track of by production people, if it actually had the signature on it.
So it's when you hold them and you look at them in such detail, and you realise the amount of work which has gone into it. And some of these backgrounds are on screen for a split second, and they must have taken weeks to produce.
Yeah. There's quite a lot of reuse of backgrounds, but cropped differently and so on. But yeah, they're beautiful paintings, and yeah, there's a whole background department. This, by the way, sorry, this moment where they all howl. This was a shot directly suggested by Spielberg, because he'd watch animatics of the storyboards put together with sound and music, and he would sometimes suggest shots. And that shot he suggested, and then about 6 months later, I saw what was the movie, The Flintstones, which he'd been a producer on, and that exact same moment happens where they're all drinking beer and they turn and howl straight up towards camera.
Oh, really?
So that's even making the same suggestion to different people. Yeah.
Wow. So it's obviously a little bit of a trope which he enjoys.
Well, he did have a tendency to do that. I remember there was a thing on the American Tail 2, Fievel Goes West. There was a gag as he came up with that was to do with a bow tie. Oh no, what it was one of the cats had an eye patch, and Fievel ran up and pulled the eye patch off and let it go, and it slapped back in the cat's face. And Stephen suggested that, and we boarded it, and then I think we maybe even animated, and then Stephen asked for us to cut it out, and then it turned out that exact gag was in Hook. So yeah, he tended to forget when he suggested. Yeah,
absolutely. This is a beautiful scene. The music is phenomenal. The oil in the background is lovely.
Yeah, I've got to say the score on this was terrific. James Horner did an amazing job. It's interesting. I didn't really know much about how to work with composers, and to be honest, James wanted to talk to Stephen much more than he wanted to talk to me. So he didn't, really didn't get an awful lot of input on stuff. And one of the things that I am still like slightly irritated by, I'm pretty sure that the White Wolf theme that happens much later on in the movie is fairly close to Apollo 13. And I think James kind of felt like, oh, well, no one saw this movie, I can just use that again.
Well, there's a movie we're going to have to watch.
No, I had noticed I actually really liked Apollo 13. I
loved Apollo 13. I
thought
thought
they
it
do
was
sound
a superb
similar.
movie, but I remember going to see it and going, wait a minute. I mean, I may be maligning James a bit, but he did have a slight tendency to reuse things, and I haven't actually gone and done a side-by-side to find out. Interesting. I think this sequence, actually, I did a lot of the layouts in this sequence. I mean, my storyboards are pretty close to layouts anyway, but when I finished storyboarding the movie, and I animated that shot. That shot of the geese, I actually that's the one shot in the movie I actually animated myself. But yeah, a lot of the layouts, because once I finished storyboarding, it's like, well, I've got time, I could do it. So I ended up doing a whole bunch of layouts on the show as well. I mean, I had the advantage that the director always approved my stuff, so
Oh, here comes Phil Collins.
Phil Collins. It's interesting. Phil Collins wanted to do a voice in an animated movie. He basically he got in touch and said, have you got anything you would like me to do? And he did. He just we sent him the script and he recorded a bunch of like little demo pieces, and yeah, and his stuff for Muck and Luck was so damn funny.
It's amazing. It's such an amazing combination of not only talent and people, but randomly Phil Collins.
Phil Collins, yeah. As I say, he wanted to do it, and I remember when we were doing the recording session, I said, Phil, it's a real honor, and thank you so much for doing the movie. And he said, well, it's all money, isn't it, Simon?
I just love how unashamedly Cockney the polar bears are, these native Alaskan polar bears, and I mean, me and Kate quote that line all the time when we're talking to a dog. Go, we love you, Uncle Boris.
Yeah, his character actually quite quotable.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course Bob Hoskins doing the voice of Boris. Bob Hoskins was great. He's He's a scary dude to be around, though. I mean, he can be very nice, but he can come over as quite intimidating. You know, he's about 5'8" in both directions. You know, he's just like this big solid guy, and you know, there were times when he was having difficulty getting a line right, and he'd get quite cross, and you feel like, I don't know if I ought to say anything right now or not, because like it's just like, oh, you know, there was one point he said, "What am I doing? What am I doing? I used to have a career, and now I'm playing a goose." Anyway, yeah, he was a lot of fun. And yeah, and you mentioned Kevin Bacon, who was the voice of Balto. He actually wasn't the production voice. Kevin Anderson was the production voice. I mean, at the time, I don't know if you remember the film Sleeping with the Enemy. It was Kevin Anderson with Julia Roberts, and so he was kind of the hot property. And then by the time we finished the film and Universal realized they had kind of a nicer film on their hands than they were expecting, they and also Kevin Anderson was no longer the hot property, and so they offered to recast it with Kevin Bacon, and it's like, yeah, I've always been a huge fan of Kevin Bacon, so absolutely I'll take that. And he was great. He was, you know, he did say, "Oh God, I wish I'd been able to be the recording originally to do the animation too, because when you're just kind of like copying and dropping into animation, it's nothing like as satisfying as actually originating the character and sort of behavior and performance." And yeah, I feel the same way. It's like I'd love him to have been the original voice.
Yeah, I suppose he was just lip syncing to material.
Essentially, yeah, it was an ADR, additional dialogue recording, and yeah, it's not as satisfying as being able to really experiment with stuff in the recording.
No. I really admire this shot coming up when Balto eventually appears behind Jenna, because you guys not only animated the characters in one direction, we'll see them mirrored in the other direction shortly, and then you have a little bit of sort of cell lighting on them. It's an absolute stunning shot. I'm a bit early in bringing it up actually, but it's coming right up.
It was one of those places where, okay, we're going to push the boat out and actually have rim lights and shadows and you know, actually make this pretty.
But yeah, I love that moment. Go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, just doing a shot that had reflections as well as highlights. Yeah.
This whole scene is testament to sort of Balto as a character as well, where he sort of tries to push his hair down in his reflection, and it pops back up again. He's so shy and timid, isn't he? This is the moment I'm talking about. And again, just a split second.
By the way, Rosie was animated almost entirely, I think entirely, by Dave Bowers. And Dave Bowers went on to direct Astro Boy and then later the Wimpy Kid movies. So yeah, I think he's gone back to England now, but yeah. But yeah, I mean, so much of this relies on just beautiful art direction. There's kind of a warmth from inside the shed there, makes up for the fact that there's really remarkably little lighting on the characters.
Again, the color difference, it's going from the dark blues of outside to the hot oranges, and now they're under this dirty, dusty basement, as it were, foundations. Yeah. It's completely different colors.
And the one advantage we had with this, we were doing all of the character painting. They weren't cells; they were actually it was all done digitally. And I remember Jane Gotts was the color design on the characters. And yeah, we set her up in the most miserable cubicle, which was like this perfect neutral gray. So when you were, I used to go and sit with her and look at you know, color design in shots, and the cubicle was absolutely horrible to be in because it was so completely neutral. There was no color in it at all. And then she had, like, you know, perfectly balanced monitor and so on. So all of the character color is carefully sort of adjusted to fit with the backgrounds all the way through the movie.
And that might answer a question for later on as well.
Yeah, because previously when things like American Tail 2, we'd done it on cells, and there you really had a limit on how many different color types you could have it, night warm and night cool and daytime, and that was kind of it, and a highlight color. This, I think, was animated by Patrick, who terrific. He did some of the character design as well. He animated the dogs. The Sandra Dickinson and the other dog. He was sort of supervisor on those characters.
Oh, Sylvie and Dixie.
Sylvie and Dixie, thank you. Yes.
Here comes Steele. Something which has been said many times about Steele as a character is how almost every frame he has been drawn in is just animated evil. Like this, the way he moves, the way he looks, his tongue there, and it's throughout the whole film, he is just pure evil.
Yeah, Rodolphe did some of the stuff. He did most of the stuff that was Steele and Jenna together, Rodolphe Guinedin, and Shaheen, and I can't remember what Shaheen's surname is. I do apologize, but he did a lot of Steele as well. But yeah, and superb voice work by Jim Cummings. Actually, originally it was Brendan Fraser we cast, and I'm still sort of sorry we lost Brendan. He was wonderful. He was really lovely to work with, and the whole concept of Steele was a little bit more like the quarterback of the school football team, a bully and an arrogant, but not as overtly evil as he ended up being. I mean, got to say, Jim Cummings, amazing voice, so I have no complaints.
Yeah, that was actually one of the questions. I'm sorry. That was actually one of the questions that the folks were asking.
I was going to say, I mean, Jim Cummings, he seems very proud of being able to voice Steele. He's gone off Twitter, as many people obviously have since he became X, but he posted quite frequently about Steele, and he would share people's artwork. And
really?
I had the pleasure of he would, yeah, and I had the pleasure of meeting him at the London Comic Con, and he signed something for me. And when I produced it, he went, "Oh wow, it's Steele," and then proceeded to talk about Balto for about 10 minutes.
I'm glad he still remembers that. I did actually run into him at a party. Seth Green was holding a party for Robot Chicken. I can't remember, like their 200th episode or something. I can't remember what it was. Which, because I'd worked with Seth on Mars Needs Mums, I went along to the party and chatted with him for a bit then, and yeah, I was kind of amazed he even remembered the movie. Oh, I have to tell you a little side thing here. One of the jobs I've always wished I had done was Foley, which is all those incidental sounds that that happen in a movie. And I got to visit the Foley stage when they were doing the work on this movie. And the antitoxin bottles are actually a small wooden crate of Coca-Cola bottles. So the antitoxin is literally the real thing. Yeah.
Oh, anyway, it's actually clinking. Yeah, this is the detail we're after. This is wonderful.
Oh, the great thing about Foley is that you find things that sound right, even though they're not the real thing. So all of the footsteps in the snow are actually what is it? It's not flour. It's oh shit, I've forgotten the word. It'll come back to me. But it's stuff which makes just that perfect little squeak noise when you crush it and twist on it. And so, the day that they were doing all of the snow stuff, the Foley artist was just completely covered in white powder because she walked around in it so much. But boy, yeah, all of that, I'm just looking at like the animation of all of that wooden fence. Holy cow. That was a lot of work.
This is funny as well. I mean, it's not just the wooden fence movie, it's of course Balto on top of it as well.
On top of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether the wooden fence was done first or Balto was done. That Balto, I think, is Dick Zondag. Dick Zondag had been one of the directors who'd worked for a while on We're Back, and then had left the studio, and he came back to animate. And actually, his Balto, I think, is the best Balto in the movie. He does really, really good animation.
I think you'll find with certain frames, if you were to go down a rabbit hole of looking at fan art of obviously drawings people have drawn, there are certain expressions from this film which certainly appear more in most people's artwork than anything else, and I suspect it might be the frames you're also thinking of. So
yeah.
This rolling effect you have with the background, as obviously the dogs are running towards, was it a long background, or was it on
well,
a loop?
You've got a big background if you're doing a zoom in and out of camera. So yeah, it's actually a very, very large piece of artwork that you're doing a zoom out on. That limits how long you can hold that, keep that shot going. And yeah, the stuff that's a pan is that sometimes is just a loop of artwork. But generally, and again, this is one of those Spielberg influence things. Stephen would always say, have things coming in and out of camera. Towards camera, away from camera is much more powerful than panning across camera. Which is funny because it flies in the face of kind of accepted wisdom from the early Disney films, where you always try and do things in profile because it reads clearer. But yeah, that's one of the little things on my shoulder, is Spielberg saying into camera, as close to camera as you can do it.
Again, just pure evil.
Yeah.
The teeth, everything.
Yeah. Actually, looking at it now, he's kind of he's the dog version of Gaston, isn't he?
I was just thinking that.
I think that's been said of, yeah. He's almost got a Canadian Mountie kind of vibe about him, I feel, but sort of high up, almost as if he was on a horse looking down at you.
Yeah, always his head is above the height of everybody else's. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, Jim Cummins must have.
Oh
yeah, he's definitely cropped. Jim Cummins must have just gone full Jim Cummins. I mean,
that man has the most flexible larynx in the world. The fact he can do everything from this really deep, gruff, growling voice, and he's also Winnie the Pooh.
Yes.
and everything in between. It's incredible. Some people are just blessed with extraordinary pipes, and yeah, and plus he's a really good actor, so he can infuse that voice with genuine emotions. So yeah, I look at people like Jim and think, damn, he had a kind of blessed life.
Again, another beautiful example of darks, blues, oranges, that light which represents hope, and reflections. Again, Jim, he did a talk when I met him, and it was fascinating listening to him not only tell us how he came across the character voices, because he based them a lot of the time on real people he met in his life, but obviously doing so much charity work, because he started sitting on stage talking about the charity work, talking to children in hospitals as Winnie the Pooh. And again, just so strange to hear a voice actor who's sitting in front of you suddenly just be Winnie the Pooh.
Oh, yeah, when you just break into it, and you kind of do a double take. Yeah. You had a question about the train, and I can't remember. I have a strong feeling we actually found a photograph that was pretty close to like 1925, 1928, something like that, of the train. Certainly, it's a train of the right era. But I think with that snowplow attached to it, I think we actually had a direct reference of the train, and it was authentically the train that was in the town at the time. I can't give you chapter and verse on that. I don't actually.
No.
Yeah.
That was a question from Chase, who I think is probably in the chat channel somewhere. So no doubt he'll pipe up later.
Yeah, he's here.
Oh, this is one of the
Excellent.
interesting things in terms of the art direction. One of the things that Hans Barker said is, a lot of the time snow is darker. The snow is dark against a light sky, and that's one of the things that you kind of don't think of. You always think of snow as going to be white, but it's actually when you've got a light background, the snow comes over as dark, and it added so much kind of dimension, particularly where you had sort of light snow in the background and dark snow in the foreground.
I think you were involved in the documentary which came with the DVD. It was about the only thing which was on the Balto DVD, and I'm sure either yourself or someone mentioned the snow was almost like an independent character.
Oh yeah,
because
we had a whole department just doing the snow, because every shot had to be kind of custom created. Again, the sort of accepted wisdom in animation is, by and large, you have kind of snow cycles, and you have, like Disney had like 6 or 8 snow cycles that you can see over and over again in their movies. Every time there's a movie that has some snow in it, it's the same damn snow animation. You can recognize it. And so one of the things we felt was really important early on is to make it so that the snow is not snow cycles. It's not just stuff falling down. Every time it's kind of it has a relevance to the sort of the behavior of the scene. Oh, this is one of my favorite shots. Mangled by the cropping, but
yeah, it is, unfortunately.
But I love the fact you don't know what the hell he's doing until he picks it up, and then when he picks it up and actually puts it down, you realize what it is.
And there's nothing actually darker, is there?
Definitely.
Oh yeah, it's a super dark moment. But I think this actually, I think this was actually from a story that Steve Hickner told about somebody he knew, who he said, when you see a child's coffin, it really hits you much more than just coffins in general. But a super dark moment for an animated movie. But I gotta say, I like getting to do moments in animated movies that really have kind of an emotional impact, and that certainly was one of them.
I love Balto's expressions in that moment where he's a few seconds behind the viewer, and you can see in his eyes he's putting it together in his little dog brain, and he realizes, and then he goes. But it's all silent, of course, as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a brilliant line.
Yeah, that was another shot done by Christoph. Yeah, there's quite a lot of things that we did dig up quite a lot from reference. So that building is actually the hospital building, or at least the doctor's building in Nome at the time.
Wow.
Actually, in point of fact, the whole story was blown massively out of proportion, because there weren't that many kids who got sick, and there's even frankly a question whether they were in fact sick with diphtheria or not. But the whole thing became this kind of cause celeb, and was being reported in as near to real time as you could in the newspapers at the time. So because newspapers would come out two editions a day, and so there were constant updates on what was going on in the serum run. But whether it was ever actually necessary at all is a really good question.
It was a time period which I guess America, and I think the world actually, was in depression, and it was a feel-good heroic story.
Yeah, it's before the Great Depression.
Yes.
It's 1925 rather than 1930.
Yeah.
So
of course. Sorry, yeah.
But yeah, it was it was a kind of it was a high adventure kind of story. So yes, it really caught the public's imagination. And the sad thing is that after the fact, Balto was then toured around as the dog that saved Nome, Alaska, in a really kind of slightly horrific sort of way, just just lugged from cinema to cinema to just
Absolutely.
display him. And he's
It's sorry, carry on. I was lagging, I think.
no, I was just going to say he ended up taxidermied in Cleveland. I've never actually been to the Cleveland Museum. I probably ought to go one day, but I have no particular reason to go to Cleveland.
No, I would love to go to the statue. I've never been to the statue, but
Well, the statue's
I'm
right
not
there
sure
in
I
New
really
York,
want
isn't
to see.
it?
It is, you know. I mean, Balto's obviously a lot of criticism which historians give to the true story, of course, is that Balto got the credit over other dogs and so on. But he didn't have a very good time. You know, he would have been a cruelty case by our standards today, and he eventually got rescued with his teammates, and he had a happier life towards the end of his life. But certainly, some of the other dogs, which certainly deserve credit, had a much happier life,
Yeah.
carried on doing what they were doing, you know.
Yeah, well, there was a Disney film that was done a few years ago that was kind of a more accurate portrayal of the story, and centered around oh, I've forgotten his name, but the
Togo.
Togo.
yeah, and which was quite interesting. And yeah, I must say, I feel quite guilty about the sort of perpetuating the fact that, you know, the real hero dog didn't actually get the credit he deserved.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, Togo was he was a fantastic dog, and I believe that almost every Siberian Husky can trace his bloodline back to Togo.
I think it's probably
Because
one of
he,
those things where everyone claims that they can, you know.
well,
It's like you want that in your pedigree. But yeah, I mean, he and that team did the entire run to Nanana, picked the antitoxin up, started off on the way back, met the some of the other runners on the way, and they took it from him. But he arrived back like only a day or two behind the arrival of. I mean, he would have made it in like a day or two less, a day or two more time than the entire you know, bunch of teams handing it one to another. Yeah, and then there's a whole controversy about the fact that Balto's team were actually the second to last team, and they were supposed to have handed it over to the last team, and they just carried on through. You know, and his musher said, you know, we were running so well, it didn't seem like we ought to stop. But
yeah,
yeah, there's been kind of a blood between the families ever since, because he robbed the musher of the ability, you know, the glory of being the one who brought it home.
Yeah, absolutely. I love we're obviously coming into the bear scene now, and the animation on the bear in particular is, again, for a kids movie. He's I'd imagine younger kids would probably find him quite scary, but I love the style in which he's been
Yeah,
drawn.
I mean, he's a rather deliberate sort of departure into a kind of a more comic book or anime kind of a look, in that he always has this like you know, hot highlight and a cold highlight, and then he's completely white eyes, so that the idea was he's much more a force of nature. He's not a character as such. He's not, you know, there's no way this character would ever talk.
No, he's almost a Don Bluethy kind of vibe, I feel, with obviously no pupils in the eyes, for example.
Sorry, I'm just I'm interested watching this. It's been a long time since I've seen this.
It's
But
okay.
oh wow, lens flares! Look at that.
Yeah, nothing
But
but the
yeah,
best.
it's I mean, it's an interesting departure. The lighting on the bear is supported by, again, the brilliant art direction of the backgrounds, where the backgrounds are essentially a two color. It's two colors. This sort of slightly purpley blue, and then this an ochre orange.
Mm.
This I actually can't remember, and this is embarrassing. I can't remember who animated the bear. and I ought to be able to, and I do apologize to the animator, because he'd probably, if he ever hears this, he'd be spitting angry at me for not having remembered, because it's some beautiful, very powerful, heavy, weighty animation.
Mm.
Yeah, it's stunning.
And of course, with two-tone colours on the bear as well
Yeah.
in that shot.
Yeah, it might have been Patrick again on the bear. It looks like his animation, but yeah, this wonderful kind of looseness of the body, and the sense of the kind of fat and muscle moving independently of the skeleton.
And almost like the jaw is unhinged in a way.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, when I first saw this, I thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I know that was straight up ad lib from Phil.
Was it really?
I think I don't know, but Geronimo, I think so, but certainly the the bugle call thing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and this
He made
animation.
all of these noises as well.
Oh yeah. He just we just I'd show him the storyboard. Well, actually, sometimes we just straight up play the animatic, and he'd make the noises along with the film. I'm just trying to. Oh boy, I'm trying to remember the animator who. Hang on, I'm looking up. Oh yeah, Nicholas Marlett did a lot of Muck and Luck. Nicola went on to be like the main character designer at DreamWorks for an awful lot of the movies. Incredibly talented. He was principal. Did all the character designs for the Dragons movies.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, one of the interesting things about DreamWorks is when DreamWorks set up, it actually wouldn't have been able to do Prince of Egypt if there hadn't been this team of people who'd come from doing Balto and the movies before. Because like 120 of the artists came over and were the backbone that formed DreamWorks. And it was really interesting because Jeffrey Katzenberg kind of assumed that, oh, we're going to have to get artists from Disney. They're going to be the best guys. And so, like, he managed to lure James Baxter, for instance, over, but Disney basically offered people a lot more money than we could afford to offer them. And so Jeffrey was kind of dismissive of these European artists. And then he started to see some of the work they actually did and realized that he lucked out because, they're extraordinary, just brilliant draftsmen and world-class animators. And he just really, he'd been dismissive of it because he just hadn't realized. I mean, to be honest, this is one of the story flaws in this. Jenna coming out, saving him from the bear, and then immediately getting injured and being taken away again, is kind of clunky. I got to be honest. I knew quite a lot about like how to put shots together and how to do the cinematography for a movie, but really didn't understand much about story structure. And so I feel like this is somewhere where I'm not sure what we should have done, whether Jenna should have stuck with him for longer or whether she should have been part of originally going out. But the fact she sort of shows up, immediately gets injured and gets taken away again seems to shortchange the character rather.
She's a very strong female character in
Who's then
general in the
underused,
film.
and should be.
So I mean, she stands up to Steele, and she obviously saves the day in this particular case. And it's a bit of a shame, really, but perhaps she's carted away to then sit on a rug.
Yeah, right, and kind of
Yeah.
be the sort of voice of hope and emotion and stuff back in Gnome. But yeah, she should have been more of the story. But hey, you know.
But then Balto has to go on his journey of
Well,
self-discovery
ultimately,
as
yeah,
well.
he has to be the lone hero. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like her giving him the bandana, it helps. Like she's with him in spirit, so that's something at least.
sure, yeah.
Mm.
That's a nice little setup for Steel to do what Steel does later as well.
Absolutely.
That's very true. Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like in these sort of backgrounds, the actually surprisingly warm shadows. Again, a level of kind of color control. Actually, we had a couple of heads of background. One of them was Luc de Marchelier, who went on to be production designer on a bunch of things. He was actually, just noticeably, he was the production designer on the two Bad Guys movies, which
Oh, okay.
are beautifully designed movies.
Mm.
It's a great shame Bad Guys 2 didn't perform better than it did. It came out at a really bad weekend.
Mm.
Yeah, I love this like extraordinary vibrant orange against this kind of gray blue. I would not know how to paint that stuff and make it work.
I mean, something I was going to say, actually, just connecting to Jenna being taken away. Given that Balto is now wearing her bandana, it's like that beacon again. It's almost the same orange as the lantern in Gnome. It's the same orange as you see the medicine in the sled team now. And up to this point, he's walking through this dark, cold environment, but he's got this bright orange. It's the only color, literally the only color, which is I don't know if it's intentional or not, but it's quite, it works well.
That's a very impressive piece of rationalization. I shall use that.
Quick question from the chat. Togo, he has the another version of the basically a better crop version of the movie, the uncropped. If he said you want to switch over to that one.
Yeah.
I mean,
if he can do it without starting the film all over again, then then I would be happy with that. If Simon was happy with that.
I mean, I don't mind. You guys know the movie and know that it's actually better composed and better designed than this. But I don't have to swap over. It's okay. I shall stop making rude remarks about it.
Well, I mean, if you want to see the uncropped version of this scene coming up, it's up there.
Oh, what, behind you? So
yeah. Yeah, that's the original background with not production cells. They didn't exist, but they were made by Universal later.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty violent for a kids animated movie. It's interesting there. You can see that the shadow there was actually painted on the background, and so there's Steel panting, but the shadow actually doesn't move.
And you can see it's visibly hurt as well. I mean, Balto was made in a time period where it's kind of at the end of a time period of animated movies were kind of there to scare children. You know, we grew up with Watership Down.
Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. Watership Down is actually kind of appalling. I think it's a good movie, but man, there's some scary moments in that are really terrifying. I remember my kids seeing it for the first time. Yep.
I'm glad.
So traumatized.
Yeah, I'm glad I was in my 20s when I saw that.
I mean, the best move which British television did in recent years was Channel 5 showed Watership Down at lunchtime on Easter because it had rabbits in it.
Oh, man. Oh, yeah. And everyone sat there, little kiddies down to watch that. Yeah, right.
Absolutely.
I have to give a little shout out. The original voices of the Sled Dogs were actually a group of guys called the Reduced Shakespeare Company. And they were Austin Titchener, Reed Martin, and Adam Long. And they used to do this show, which was basically all the works of Shakespeare in an hour and 3/4. And
I've seen them do it, yeah.
and they were brilliant. I mean, actually the lineup has changed over the years, but we had them come in and they just kind of ad-libbed a whole bunch of stuff, much of which ended up kind of in the movie. But again, the feeling is they wanted to have, you know, kind of more known voices. And it has to be said that, you know, the people who did the replacements, like Robbie Rist, Jack Angel, and Danny Mann, are very
Danny Mann,
good.
yeah.
But I still feel sort of bad that the original Reduced Shakespeare Company weren't in there, because they were brilliant.
So there was quite a lot of replacement voice actors then towards the end of the production.
Yeah, although the that wasn't done at the end. The three guys who were the sled dogs, we recorded their voices before animation. So the only ones that were replaced were Bridget Fonda and Kevin Bacon, replacing the two leads. Yeah, wow, it's interesting watching this. Sorry, I'm a bit of self-congratulation here, but you know, watching this movie again, it's like, yeah, this the sort of action adventure parts of this are you know, really quite gripping.
Well, I think there's a reason that I was going to say, I think there's a reason why you're talking to a bunch of middle-aged people who still passionately love this film.
And again, I remain astonished at like that like tomato orange sky, that somehow the whole thing still feels cold. Yeah. And then this bunch of dogs that are in the dredger. Yeah, there's a couple of wide shots of a dredger, and I will fess up to a historical anachronism. The dredger, I think, dates from like 1932. We couldn't find the 1920s design of the dredger, but
I mean, it's amazing that you guys did so much research into it anyway.
Well, and in an era when there wasn't an internet to do the research on. I mean, now doing that kind of research is kind of the work of an afternoon. But yeah, we had to dig up books and stuff to yeah.
Did you guys ever go to Nome, Alaska as part of this?
No, Phil and I actually went dog sledding up in Rovaniemi, up in the Arctic Circle in Finland. We went and spent a weekend up there, and it gave me a profound respect for the whole dog sledding thing, because it was so cold. It was unbelievably cold. At times we'd like get off the sled and have the sled do like a drive-by so we could like shoot video, and you're standing there in the snow just feeling your life force being sucked out of you. You know, you realize, oh, 15 minutes here and I'd be dead. Good Lord. And the other thing that was really impressive about it is, man, the dogs really, really want to run. Anyone who thinks that dog sledding is cruel to the dogs, the only cruelty is the dogs who don't get to go in the traces, the dogs who don't get to go on the team, because those dogs are miserable. It was amazing. They had the place we visited was a whole kennel, and they had like, oh, I don't know, several dozen dogs. And the dogs that were stuck in the kennel, they just whined. They were so unhappy. And the dogs the dogs that were put into the traces from the very first, the lead dog, the guy, Heike, it was Heike Marquetta. Heike had hammered this like 2-foot long iron rod into the ice and attached the sled. And he had to, because the first dog he put in was slamming against the traces so hard the entire sled was lifting off the ground. And we got into the sled, and you know, Heike pulls the rope clear, and the acceleration was, you know, it wasn't 0 to 60. They only get up to about 20 miles an hour or so, but it was like you could feel your flesh going back as it accelerates away. Kind of amazing.
I mean, Stefano, who's we're grateful to sorting the streaming side of this out. This is all him. He lives in Finland now, and he
right.
does dog sledding far more professionally than I ever did. We were talking about that before we went live, and you know, he's doing long distance mushing. But I mean, the power which these animals have. I mean, we were training ours. By pulling a quad bike in neutral, and they were pulling it consistently about 25 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Of course,
I love that shot of Balto pulling out of the snow with the sun behind him and the dark snow in the foreground. Just one of those shots you just look at and go, "Oh, that's really satisfying."
I don't speak for everyone. This is just my opinion on this scene. That to me, that's like almost like a rebirth. That
Yep.
this is
Yep.
his moment. He's going to turn into something.
Yeah, that's very much intention. And the whole thing with the white wolf, yeah, it was deliberately ambiguous that, you know, you could see it as a sort of, you know, it's the like, you know, Bambi's father saying you must get up. It could be his father, or it could be, you know, just the spirit of being a wolf that's appeared to him. You know, was it a real animal at all, or was it just in his imagination?
I mean, he did land on his head, of course. So.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not all there anymore, is he?
No.
Yes, good lord, the white wolf literally only appears in like 4 shots in the movie. That's really interesting, isn't it?
Did Kevin Bacon actually howl?
No. No, that's a straight on sound effect.
In fairness, I recently rewatched Spirit in relation to one of your interviews I watched on YouTube, and there are some wolf howls in that which sound remarkably similar to this.
It's probably a standard sound effect. I wouldn't be at all surprised if it's just like an off-the-shelf sound effect. By the way, if you get the DVD of Spirit, there's a whole section which is my storyboards of taking the train across the mountain. That sequence.
Oh yes.
There's a side by side of the storyboards and the section of the movie, and that's entirely a sequence I created. Literally, there was no script for that scene. They just said, "Hey, we've got this idea," and you know. And you know, it was like a 4-line brief of so they're going to try and get a train across the mountain. Spirit gets put into the team. Somehow he rescues all the horses and he destroys the train. Oh, and by the way, he's got to end up with a chain around his neck, because he's got a chain around his neck in the next sequence, because there used to be a thing in the mines that this replaced the sequence in the mines. So yeah, that was a ground up construction I did for that movie.
Again, the movement, I know that you mentioned the sled was CGI'd, but the movement you've got of a lantern wobbling on top as it's going, and
all the looseness of making sure all the parts move separately. And I think the sled had some flex in it and so on. But yeah, I mean, look at the pinks in this. Just you know, I would never think of painting snow as pink, but it adds visual variety and you know, so it's not just the same gray and white snow. Yes, it's interesting. I have, as I was mentioning earlier, I lent to Genevieve these my storyboards from this. I thumbnailed the whole movie. Some of the movie, Dan Yippus did some of the storyboard stuff, particularly the stuff in town. But there are a number of people who are credited as storyboard artists who, to be honest, actually cleaned up my thumbnails. But yeah, one of the things I find interesting watching this back is how much sort of apparent dimensionality there is in stuff that is entirely 2D. We didn't have the ability to do three-dimensional backgrounds.
I think this snow movement coming up here is I think visually one of the most stunning parts in this section.
Yeah, there was some really good special effects work in this.
That look Balto just gave to the camera, it makes me laugh every time, because
it's just like, oh, not
all this stuff's
again.
happening. It's just like, oh, really?
Yeah, one damn thing after another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now that poor Masha.
Oh yeah, he gets so beaten up in this.
Yeah. And again, this is a beautiful bit of lighting coming up as well, with the shadows as well, of course.
Yeah, and ought to give a shout out to camera crew who scanned all of this stuff in, and Robert Crawford, who went on to, he came with us, he was the head of the camera, went on to come out to LA with us, and he was scene planner for lots of movies.
I assume the ET reference was a demand from Stephen, was it?
No, I actually came up with that, and I threw that in. I wasn't sure if Stephen would go with it actually, but he thought it was funny. So
fair enough.
I know, things like that step in you think you're looking at stalagmites, and then it turns to be a reflection of the stalactites from above, and I can't remember how we did the ripples, the reflection ripples there. I literally cannot remember how we achieved that. I think it was done. I mean, it is a digital compositing thing, so
I think there's a whole scene there. Every single part of the composition is just action and perfect, if I may say so.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting. That's an animated floor, but then a flat background. Yeah, that was actually multiplane. It's actually multiple levels traveling at us at the same time. But boy, so many places we could have done with motion blur. It was a thing which actually, right at the end of doing Prince of Egypt, they discovered they could do motion blur, interpolating between frames of drawn animation. And I think there are about 6 or 8 shots in Prince of Egypt that actually have motion blur on them. And man, it's one of those things I'd always wished we'd have, which of course, is free and easy in CG work, but never existed in animation, apart from the dry brush thing that they used to do mostly in shorts. They didn't tend to do it in features. But you could get kind of a blur by dry brushing on top of the cell.
There's one thing which was pointed out in one of the sort of mainstream YouTube streamers. I can't remember, it might have been Saber Spark or someone like that. Once it's pointed out, you can never unsee it. And but Balto doesn't actually have any lines in this film beyond a certain point. He speaks shortly, but it's the first time in quite a while.
Oh yeah, there's a big chunk of the movie
for that, or
well, there's a big chunk of the movie that is basically a silent movie. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I miss it. This is the strength of show don't tell.
Absolutely. And again, all the lights coming on, all the color coming back.
Yeah, actually that shot, the down shot, very, very simple, easy one to do, but it's that's that feeling of everything lighting up and
so powerful.
Yeah, hope returning. Yeah, this for instance was a scene that Dan Yippas storyboarded. So things like the tossing the bone up in the air and so on is very much his kind of action.
Of course, one of the topics which I think a few people want to hear about is the very, very dark ending to Steel in the original storyboards. But instead of, I think this is more fitting personally because he loses, it's his ego which is important to him. But in the storyboards, it showed him being hanged by his own collar as the coals fall on top of him, and it was.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that? It was obviously cut out.
Vaguely, yeah. And it's basically it's a sort of unnecessarily violent end,
Yes.
and also kind of not fitting for this. I'm being attacked by not fitting for this kind of moment in the movie. You don't want to have a character being killed just as you're about to have all this kind of joyful.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been like something you'd have seen in a Disney movie, or.
But also it's the wrong moment. I mean, like at the end of a big fight, like for instance Gaston dying at the end of the fight in Beauty and the Beast, that's fine because there's a big tumultuous fight and he's sort of responsible for his own ending. And here, because we're already on the upsurge towards victory, it would have been very odd to have killed Steel off. But I think it was a Spielberg thing of like, no, you shouldn't kill him. Just leave him humiliated.
Which is far more fitting for his character.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I do like the way the townsfolk don't even blink that two polar bears just running.
Right. Well, when you live up there, there's polar bears all over the place all the time, aren't there?
Was it if brown lie down, if a black fight back, and if it's a white bear, you just die.
Yeah,
I think that's the general advice, isn't it?
Yeah, they move too fast and they're too strong, and yeah. It's funny that's a line that my family always quotes back to each other, and whenever you do something good for the other person, my wife say, "I'd have been lost without you."
I think Katie may unmute her microphone shortly because that gets her every single time. We need to discuss these looks, Simon. There's clear eyeball communication going on between these two characters.
Well, it's difficult because you can't have dogs kiss, really, can you? They just It doesn't really make sense.
No, I 100% agree. A beautiful transition into the Northern Lights.
Yeah, which I'd never actually seen when we did the movie. It's like, is this actually what Northern Lights look like? Somebody tell me. Oh God, shooting in this part of New York in particular. When you do a live action shoot, you try and control. You don't want people walking through. But let me tell you, New Yorkers do not care. You can have PAs, at every entrance saying, "I'm sorry, can you just wait, just for like a minute and a half while we do this take?" And people just march through. It's like, nope, I got to get myself to work. Not stopping for you. Yeah, it's really funny. A lot of people thought we'd actually invented this statue, but it was a fake thing. But there's a really nice thing that Kevin Bacon put online like a year ago or so, where he walks up to a statue and points at it and goes, "I played that guy."
Nice.
It's wonderful. I mean, because he obviously didn't spend a huge amount of time working on the film. I think I read he recorded his lines in about an afternoon.
Oh, a day or maybe two. I think it probably only a day. He was really, really good at it. But, but yeah, I'm sorry we didn't get to work with him for longer because he was a really nice guy.
It's lovely he remembers it. If Katie's going to turn her camera on and her microphone on, we're probably going to see tears.
Oh,
I'm not turning on the camera.
Are you okay, Katie?
I'm fine.
Such a good scene.
beautiful.
I've got to say, it is actually a really nice statue as well. It's one of the most popular
Mm,
statues in the park because
mm.
kids love it.
I think his nose and his head is constantly bronze colored because
Yeah,
people
people come
keep
up and rub it.
telling him he's a good
Yeah.
boy. I saw a wonderful photograph of it was in the snow, and obviously the statue had snow on him, and someone had put a woolly scarf around his neck to keep him warm.
Aw.
Oh boy,
Rob,
Nick
Such a good
Fletcher.
wow.
Nick Fletcher, the lead editor on the show. I'm actually
Mm,
working with him right now on Shrek
mm,
5. I have
mm,
worked with Nick my entire career. He started at Dick Williams' studio a month before I did, and so yeah, that was like 1984, and
mm,
he was our lead editor on Prince of Egypt,
mm,
and
mm,
great guy.
mm. What do you think of the song? Obviously, I'm almost a bit surprised Phil Collins didn't sing at the end for this film,
Yeah,
considering
but
that.
you know, that's one of those. That's all in the world of deals. It's way above my pay
Mm,
grade.
mm,
Actually, I have to say, I originally heard the song because uh, uh, sorry, James Horner did a demo of it, and I kind of liked the demo an awful lot.
mm,
There was a drum rhythm thing that he'd done in the demo, which was really great. On the other
mm,
hand, this version has a children's choir in it, which is really
mm,
nice. So, but
mm,
yeah, the song's great. I mean, it's
mm,
interesting that I mean, this is the way that James does it. What he does is he has like a main theme and a subsidiary theme in the film, and then he'll
mm,
use the subsidiary theme as the main tune
mm,
of the song, and then the you know, so he's kind of already designed it in. He literally
mm,
is thinking about the song, the theme of the movie being the song. I mean, same's true of like Titanic.
mm, mm. Yeah, so I think you were saying earlier about him reusing melodies. He absolutely reuses this melody in Enemy at the Gates, for example.
Yeah.
Um, I think I read actually that if he had a legal dispute over that one, someone
Oh,
suggested that he copied it, but then he produced Balto, and he said, "No, this is where I got it from."
well, I mean, it has to be said, when he did the music for Honey, I Shrunk the Kids,
Mm,
um, he was originally they were using that Power Station, I think it was called, jazz
mm,
piece in the scratch, and then he did his version of it,
mm.
and they just listened to it and went, "No, we're just going to have to pay the royalties because it is not different enough. We're going to get sued to hell." Um, I remember having a conversation with when we were recording the score for American Tail. I was talking with one of the members of the London Symphony Orchestra, and they were kind of sniping amongst themselves about how everything James does is derivative.
Mm,
And I said, "Oh, come on, what about the Mouskowitz theme
mm.
in Five Ago, you know, the American Tail movies?" And he said, without missing a beat, just said Borodin in Central Asia. It's like I've never heard that piece of music, but yeah, that's where it comes from. So yeah, um,
Stick.
I mean, you know, James said, "Look, it's only film music, isn't it?" But
Mm,
yeah, you know, when you compare it to like John Williams, who
mm,
everything he did was, you know, you couldn't find it somewhere else. You couldn't find something that was even that close to it. And
mm,
God knows he wrote hundreds and hundreds of scores. But
mm,
anyway, yeah, I mean, you know, I didn't have a lot of connection with James on any of the movies that he scored that I worked on, and you know, it wasn't until later I got to work with like Hans Zimmer on Prince of Egypt, or Klaus Belt on Time Machine, or John Powell on Mars and His Mums, and really discovered what it was like to actually collaborate with a composer, because
mm,
Hans Zimmer was amazing. You know, here's this guy who's written everything, and what he really wants you to do is come and sit in the studio with him while he's composing. He
mm,
sits at his keyboard and builds it all up on a computer. And if you will spend the day sitting with him, he loves it. I essentially babysat him. This isn't relative to Balto, but when we were doing the score for Prince of Egypt, we were down to the last day before we flew to London to record the score at Air Studios, and Hans still hadn't written The Parting of the Red Sea. And so I went and sat with him while he wrote that piece of music, which was kind of extraordinary to witness that kind of being created out of nowhere. But that's Rob Stephenhagen, brilliant Dutch animator who did the logo, especially for the amblimation stuff.
I was going to say
Anyway,
that's just to start again. I mean, we could watch it if you want. Maybe we'll watch the uncropped version.
And this really jumps out about that movie to me is it genuinely is beautifully designed and surprisingly well drawn. I mean, this thing I was saying earlier about hand-drawn animation tends to drift off model. If you and I don't want to cast aspersions, but there are a few shots in things like Beauty and the Beast where you look at it and go, it kind of got a bit rubbery and loose. And largely I credit a lot of incredibly talented French animators that we managed to get. I'm surprised by how sort of solid non-model that stuff is throughout. Thanks for making me watch it again, because as I say, I haven't watched film in literally a quarter of a century, and
I honestly, Simon, the thanks are all from us.
Yes.
This is amazing. It can be better, I don't think, for what we've been anticipating. So, thank you for
the guys
talking through the movie and letting us know all this wonderful detail.
Yes.
Yeah, well, if you've got any other questions, please fire away.
We have a few. We also got a couple.
Phone book, sir.
Yeah, I mean, they're double-sided. No, I mean, I think what we'll do is we'll edit out obviously stuff which perhaps we've already discussed.
Okay, so. And we also got some questions that popped up in the Discord during the movie.
Yes, fire away, because for stuff that people watching the movie are asking, please, let me know.
Okay. Angela, do you want to take a lead on that?
Sure, but where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the questions already submitted, and then we can double back for the ones that were submitted later in Discord?
Okay, yeah, we can do it that way.
So massive min. Let's have some excitement. Yeah.
Okay. This is the Lion's Den now, Simon. So if we're able to share the screen from Discord to here, we've got some members which would obviously like to ask you the questions directly. And we've got some members who have asked us to read it on their behalf. So we're going to mix it up a little bit, I think. So
we'll do that now, Adam.
We'll do that right now.
To get onto Discord and stream across.
Okay. Right. Let me get onto Discord then.
My wonderful wife has just brought me a cup of tea.
Nice.
Oh, say hi to people, Wendy.
Hi.
Hello.
Christmas.
She literally got me through the making of Balto. And actually, we wrote Mars Needs Mums together, which was
awesome.
Brilliant.
Okay, I've just jumped onto the Discord. I'm going to mute my microphone on the Discord, and I'll ask that everybody on Discord, of course, keeps their microphones muted until we call their name, and then they can unmute. So let me see if this will work. Okay, right, that's Discord. That's where we are. Let's get onto the chat like that. These are all the people, Simon. We've I'm not sure if they drop off, but we've got quite a few here, as you can see. It's nice to see so many old faces we haven't seen for a while, guys.
Yes.
Right. I'm going to offer Rachel, who goes by Coolie Cat on Discord. Would you like to start things off, Rachel, if you're able? I know that you said earlier you may or may not be able to. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay, Simon. This is Rachel. Rachel, Simon. Go ahead.
So Simon, what was your favorite part about working on Balto?
Boy, I mean, there's a lot of bits which are I mean, it's easier to say what are the worst parts. You know, when you're in the depth of production and like all departments are going, that is hellish and very uncomfortable. You know, and the finishing stages of a movie when you actually put, for instance, when you put the score on the movie and suddenly things tie together emotionally in a much stronger way than they ever did when you just had, because we, you know, we build animatics with scratch score that's lifted from other movies and stuff like that. But when you have a score that's been custom written for your piece, and now that emotional idea, there's a little, you know, musical figure that connects that to this, and suddenly the whole thing ties together. You get this kind of, I don't know, like 25% bump up in value of the film just in that moment. So that's kind of is very much one of my favorite parts of the process. Yeah, the a lot of the post production is tremendously fun. As I mentioned earlier, if I could have my time again, I think I'd probably be a Foley artist. I've done a little bit of Foley for short films and stuff, and man, that's so much fun. You just basically get to mess around and make noises to match what's going on screen.
I'm
So
with you on
yeah,
that one. I'd love that too.
yeah. So there are a lot of fun parts and bits that I really enjoy. I mean, to me now, the best part of filmmaking is the storyboard stage of things, because that's when the film is most open um, to influence and adjustment, and that's kind of where you get to make a big imprint on style and kind of rhythm of all kinds of things, from the cinematography to the editing to the performance, character performance, which is kind of why I've ended up basically spending most of my life storyboarding now, because it's sort of the most, you basically get to do all of the filmmaking in one go. Now, I mean, the downside is that it gets changed later or your stuff gets thrown out, but it's by far the most fun part, because it's basically all parts of filmmaking in one moment, rather than having to piece it together. So yeah, I think the short answer to that is the beginning and the end of a movie are great fun, and the middle part of a movie is miserable.
Rachel, you had a second question as well. You are more than welcome to ask that while you're on.
I've always wondered this, but why is Balto a wolf dog instead of a husky in the
Um,
movie?
that's a really good question. That was inherent in the original script that uh oh god, what were their names? Lesser and oh sorry, I'm just looking this up because I ought to damn well know. I do beg your pardon. Yeah, Ruby and Lesser, Cliff Ruby and Elena Lesser, because that was actually based on, I think it was Elena's grandparents would tell stories about the diphtheria run. I think they invented the wolf thing in order to make Balto an outsider, rather than the historical Balto was, he was kind of a second team dog. Definitely not one of the kind of hero dogs of the dog sledding world. So yeah, I think they wanted to make him more of an outsider, more of a you know, bring in a sort of coded version of a racial issue, so that you know, there's more of a turnaround, there's more of a release and acceptance when he turns out to be the hero. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it's one of those things. When you design stories, you look for, okay, what are the hinges going to be, what are the turns going to be, how are we going to, you know, where you want to end up. If you know that you want to end up with a dog who is a hero that is being lauded by the whole town, then ideally you start with a character who is the most rejected. You want to have that person, that character, be the one that nobody accepts, nobody wants around. And so to have a kind of a half breed gives you that, oh, that was some sort of mistake, that was a you know, a dog that shouldn't have been and doesn't really belong.
Right. The next question we've got is from Solaris, but Solaris has asked us to read it out on his behalf. Angela, do you want to take that one?
Sure. From Solaris, what is your favorite scene from the movie and why?
Well, I think obviously the White Wolf scene, just because it has there is a spirituality and an ambiguity to it, which I think is really interesting, and also it is that turning point. You know, basically all movies, you are heading towards the bottom of the second act, and the bottom of the second act is the you know, the long dark night of the soul. It's the point where everything has gone wrong. It's the point in animated movies where the character typically says, "This is all my fault." And from there, they've got to drag themselves, in this case, literally up a cliff to get back in the game and ultimately succeed. So to me, pretty much every movie is only as good as that moment. And whatever that moment of turnaround is, where, you know, where Sarah Connor decides that she's going to have to be her own salvation and no longer rely on other people to, you know, to do that, or, you know, the point at which Shrek discovers that yes, he has to actually be vulnerable and show his emotions and not continually push people away, and change his whole behavior, which has been to push people away before they reject him, and actually lay it out there and be honest about what he's feeling. You know, those moments are the movie. And so yeah, for me, that moment of Balto pulling himself out of the snow and then confronting what may or may not be a real thing, but it's certainly the spirit that he has to find in himself. And yeah, that bit of the score, James's score there, is transcendent. It's one of the best pieces of score I think he's ever written. I loved it. So yeah, I think that without doubt.
Wonderful. So it's lovely hearing you say stuff like this, because this is almost word for word what we have discussed for 30 years.
30 years.
When you were right.
Although,
finally.
possibly
Yes.
put one question to bed, which has been asked on the chat just now, again. So, is the White Wolf a she or a he?
Important questions.
It doesn't matter. It's not important.
Nice.
It's because it's more to do with Balto accepting that part of him and the strength of that part of him, and you know, the thing that he's rejected all these years and been embarrassed about all these years is actually his superpower. It's you know, you've always had stupidly large paws, and there's a reason why that's going to be useful right now. So yeah, is it Balto's mother? Is it Balto's father? Is it any relation of Balto at all? Is it even a real wolf? Is not important compared to what it is in Balto's own emotion, his own spirit. And I rather deliberately avoided making a decision on that. I wanted it to be that ambiguous, because to me it's a lot more powerful. It's like, I don't even really know if it's a real thing. You know, is it just in his you know, deranged imagination at this point?
The head mind.
Absolutely. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, if I was assume that if a filmmaker wants you to know that answer, the filmmaker will tell you that answer through the film, and if it's left open, then that's the answer, isn't it? It's supposed to be
you're assuming an awful lot of ability in the filmmaker. It's I have to say, you know, the trouble is, I look back on that film and I realize, man, I was flying blind. I did not understand nearly as much about story as I do, having now spent, you know, 40 years doing this. I literally, by the time I was making that movie, I'd only been working in the business less than 10 years. And indeed in film for only about 8. So and I you know, I didn't have the advantage of having actually gone to film school and studied any of this stuff. I was literally learning it all on the job. So there's a level of ignorance in there that is quite breathtaking. And actually, when I went on to do Prince of Egypt, thank God we had Brenda Chapman, because Brenda Chapman she was the story. She'd been the head of story on Lion King, and Jeffrey had been so impressed by her understanding of story that he wanted her to be the director on the movie, or one of the directors on the movie. And Brenda literally turned him down a bunch of times because she said, look, I can't direct a movie. So, my role on Prince of Egypt was really to bring cinema. And I did not realize how much I didn't know about story until I worked with Brenda. Oh my God, this woman does know about story. And I learned so much from her just on that movie alone.
Thank you. Right, Draco, over to you, Draco. I can see you there.
Hi, thanks for all this, guys, and for sorting it out. I was just wondering, with Balto, if you had a favorite character and why it was your favorite. Is it to do with the voicing or the actual storyline, or etc.?
Yeah, I got a real soft spot for Muck and Luck, and what Phil did with those characters, because particularly the little guy. I don't know which one is Muck and which one's Luck. I can never remember.
Muck is the small one, I believe.
Is Muck the small one? Okay. That was just pure Phil. He just brought that. He came up with that in an audition tape. He did a self-tape audition of a whole bunch of characters, and that one was just like, oh, okay, yeah, completely that. The character design was based on his voice performance, his audition tape. Just loved the character. And because it strangely is sort of Phil as well. It's very much, he's actually a tremendously nice guy, and so yeah, that I love that character. Let's see. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of affection for many of the characters. I was very pleased with the design of Jenna, which I think you guys already know was based on photographs of Audrey Hepburn. And although Carlos Grengel was the character designer, Rob Stephenhagen did quite a lot of refinement on the character as well. Ought to, by the way, give a big shout out to Carlos Grengel, fantastic character designer, who's been in the business, I guess, probably as long as I have. He was one of our character designers on Prince of Egypt. He's done, all kinds of movies. So yeah, look out for him. He's an amazing, brilliant, intense little Spanish guy. Like super concentrated talent. Anyway, that's about as good as I can do on my favorite characters. I kind of have, I have affection for all of them.
I mean, it's nice to hear Muck and Luck getting some love, to be honest, because obviously, a lot of us probably grew up at one point. We thought Balto was the best character, and as we got older, maybe we related more to Steel. I don't know.
That says more about you than anything, I think.
It does, exactly. I mean, okay, we got a lovely question coming up, actually, and I'm hoping she's still here, because I know she said she had to go. Is Kristen still here?
No, she's had to go.
Oh, okay. Right. Kristen, she asked if she had to go, but I would read this out. She typed it out for me, so I'll read it word for word. Just a quick background. Kristen's got a huge amount of respect here. She's one of our very talented musicians who, well, let me read it. Balto was the first significant influence of my dream to become a studio musician, which I've since gone on to achieve. To my knowledge, there was never any behind the scenes deep dive into the making of the soundtrack. So I've always wondered if there were any noteworthy stories about working with the late James Horner and the development of the music's main motifs. And you've kind of covered this bit already, the Reach for the Light title theme, and of course the famous wolf theme in particular.
I sadly, I don't have a lot of stories because, as I say, broadly speaking, I mean, James would do kind of a briefing meeting with me, but really he went through the film with Stephen. And I mean, there was one significant miss, which was when Muck and Luck first appear, and Stephen had said to James, oh, just go like full on circus music. And and James had interpreted that as being this like hugely bombastic full orchestral score thing, and it was just so completely wrong for the moment. And it was actually James' music editor who constructed the score in that moment. He actually lifted pieces from other places, other bits of the recording, and pieced it together to make the very charming little moment that is now. But yeah, I'm an awful lot of it. James doesn't do demos, so you basically you hear it for the first time when he's got an orchestra, which is again complete contrast to like Zimmer and Bedelt and Powell, who I've worked with, who build everything on a computer, and you get to hear the score in a really very, very realized form before you go in and record it. And then those guys actually, to a large extent, record stuff more like rock musicians, where they'll record bits of it and then they'll overdub it. But yeah, so yeah, for me, it was kind of glorious to get things like the White Wolf theme and see it for the first time with the whole orchestra just doing it. But on the other hand, yeah, it would have been kind of nice to have been consulted a little bit along the way. But hey, you know, and in fairness to James worked with a lot of really big name, superb filmmakers, and who the hell was I? I was just some, you know, grubby little guy doing a cartoon. So, you know, I understand why he wasn't, he didn't feel he had to pay that much attention, but yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. I just want to add, I'm speaking for Kristen, really. I just want to add a little bit because, as I say, she's one of our big success stories here.
Yeah, I mean,
Excuse me.
to have gone on to actually be a studio musician, that's an incredibly hard row to hoe. That's you know, I've known a number of musicians who were very, very good and they couldn't break into that world.
She's one of these. Sorry,
and then I've actually also known. It's funny actually, when we did the score for Marsley's Mums, there was a guy who'd been one of the parents at my kid's school, and he was on the orchestra that, and I chatted with him a bit, and he's, you know, one of the top violin players in, you know, first chair violin in Los Angeles, but he does like 4 hours practice a day. And he said, actually, the nice thing about working on John Powell's stuff is John does a lot of arpeggios. And he says, I come back from a John Powell recording session and I don't have to do my scales because I've been doing it all day. And that's wonderful. But yeah, you know, you have to put in so much work just to stay up with it. You know, they say that thing of, you know, you ignore your instrument for a day and it will ignore you for two. And it's really, really true that the level of musicianship, the level of skill that studio musicians have is astounding. I mean, actually, when we did Fievel Goes West, James wanted to have like a number of you know, iconic Western instruments, and so, for instance, had a piece where there was a banjo, and the banjo player was like, you know, one of the top banjo players in London. He sits in with the London Symphony Orchestra and they do a take, and you can feel the whole orchestra just kind of sneering. And there's like there's mumbles and they do a second take, and after the second take, James just asks the banjo player to, we'll record your part later, because the orchestra hated him. I couldn't tell, but the orchestra knew he was missing just on the back of the beat, or, you know, these little tiny errors. Because these guys can come in and they just look at the sheet music and they play it, and then James makes little adjustments. You know, bar 43, I want the cello to be a little bit, and can you do a B flat there? And, you know, he makes these adjustments, and then they play it and it's perfect, just right out, you know, out the bag. And so, you know, I actually, my brother knew a guy he was one of the top French horn players in the British Youth Orchestra. He was studying to be a doctor because he said being a doctor is a lot less stress than being, you know, in an orchestra. He just didn't want to do that, as, you know, because, you know, you make a mess of one performance, and that's it. You don't get hired again.
Mm.
So yeah, so extreme kudos to anybody who makes it
Mm.
as a studio musician.
Yeah. I mean, Kristen would absolutely say if she was here that Balto was the catalyst for her career. And
Oh,
now
glad.
just to drop some obvious things I know she's worked on. She's worked on a huge amount of gaming orchestra. She's one of these people who can pick up any woodwind instrument and she can play it, including nose flutes and all sorts. But she's worked on Star Wars. She works for Disney. Maybe your paths will cross one day. Who knows?
Yeah.
But she's very, very talented. And
Well,
it's an honor
yeah,
to know her
please
to
pass
be
on
honest.
that if she does come across me, please tell her to drop by and say hi, because yeah.
Right, we've got a continuation to the question. Actually, I think you've answered that one. That was more about did James Horner compose the soundtrack or his creativity, and I think we know the answer's yes now. Solaris has got another question. Angela, would you like to handle that one? It's about James Horner again, of course.
Absolutely. Losing James Horner was such a tragic shame, and his score for Balto is widely held up by many as one of his best. What is your favorite composition from the final score?
Well, yeah, we've already covered this in
Yeah, actually, in fairness, yeah.
the White Wolf. But yeah, I mean, James had an amazing range of stuff. My favorite score that James ever did was actually the score for Aliens, the Jim Cameron Aliens. You know, particularly if you listen to that on headphones, there's some heart-stopping moments in that. It's fantastic. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite movies as well. I would always say Aliens director's cut is up there.
My wife, who she teaches costume and fashion design and does a lot of sewing, and she put on movies to just in the background while she's working, and she knows the entire script of Aliens word for word, inflection for inflection. Yeah, it's the most highly quoted movie in our house.
We will have to do another movie night with you, Simon, with Aliens, I think.
do it with Wendy. Just have her saying all the lines just ahead of the lines
Just
actually being
slightly
said in the
ahead.
film. Yeah.
Right. I'm going to hand over then to our wonderful John, Mr. Pullinger, who's we've known for a very long time. We're very good friends now, and he's got a really nice question for you, Simon.
Far away.
Yes. First of all, thank you for joining us tonight. My wife and I married because of Balto. We met here at the Balto League, so I can't thank you enough. My question, when you were making the film, was there a decision that you made? You might not have been sure it would work at the time, but looking back, it turned out great. And you can go, yeah, that was definitely the right call to have made.
Boy. I don't know. I mean, there were difficult decisions. Like I was saying earlier, you know, we things like we couldn't actually afford to have shadows and footprints in shots. We had to actually go through and designate which shots were getting which. Those sort of things were tough decisions, but we had to do them. Yeah, I don't know that there was anything I can put my finger on that was like, wow, that was a swing, but it worked. Because I mean, the very nature of animation is you rough the whole thing out in storyboard form, and you put it together in animatic, and then we'd send it off, and Spielberg would review it and give his notes, and so you've gone through quite a lot before you get to actually making it. So yeah, sorry, I don't really have a good answer on that one. It's there's a million decisions you make along the way, some of which are tougher than others, some of which are really obvious, but I can't think of anything where it's like apart from the thing we were talking about earlier with the budget, where I had to face Stephen down and say, no, we need 25 million, we can't do it for 21. And as it turned out,
That's still a pretty good answer.
Yeah, I unfortunately never had to actually have the conversation with Stephen, so but it could have been the end of my career.
Thanks,
right there.
I mean, if nothing else, Simon, I think building on what we were discussing before we went live with these guys, this is 100% a true story. John and Marley met internationally from stateside to Norfolk, UK, and because of your film and because we had this fan community, and they met in real life, and John proposed, and they got married, and now Marley has lived here in this country for how many years, John? I lose track.
About 17, I think.
17
Wow.
years.
Just over. Yeah, November, 17 years ago.
That is fantastic. That, oh my God, that kind of makes my day. That is really wonderful. Yeah.
It is my
Oh, well,
pleasure. Thank you.
congratulations. That is, yeah, that's a fantastic story. And yeah, the whole movie is worthwhile just for that alone.
And what might blow your
Right.
mind a bit more, Simon, is he's not the only one as well. That we have more than one married couple who it's not us. It's, more than one married couple who met through the Balto League simply because of the film you guys lovingly produced.
Wow. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh well. Yeah.
I'll let you digest that one. Okay, this is a nice question. This is from Pat MC. He's asked us to read this out on his behalf. Was the original screenplay much different to the final draft?
Yeah, quite a lot of things change. Things get cut out. Things. So, for instance, the scene underneath the hospital where Balto creates the Northern Lights using broken glass and stuff, and it is a kind of an early flirtatious moment between him and Jenna. That was a scene that wasn't in the original draft, and I don't know whether that was something that Cohen and Schulman came up with. Yeah, there are quite a few bits and pieces. I mean, structurally, the story stayed very much the same as the original Ruby and Lesser draft, but you get scenes along the way. I can't. I mean, you mentioned Adam, that there was a barrels scene that got cut out, which I can't even remember where it used to go now, frankly. So yeah, I mean, there's some breathing, but structurally the thing remained very much the same.
Right. Thank you, Simon. Neil, I don't know if Neil's going to turn his mic on. He was, but I think his circumstance. Neil, are you there? Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I'm here.
Good man. Neil, you have 2 questions for Simon. Please feel free. Over to you.
Yes. My first will be your experience with Steven Spielberg. Has there been some choices that you agree with or disagree with during the project, or what are your thoughts of that made him so successful within the industry?
I think it's, firstly, when you're working for Stephen, there's no question about that. It's not a collaboration. You are Spielberg's man. You are doing what he's asking you to do. But then there is the aspect of he's made a few films that have been quite successful, because I grew up on Spielberg's movies. So it would be churlish of me to say, oh, he wants me to do this, but I think he's wrong. It's a combination of, yes, it's his ball and it's his field and we play by his rules, but also I do have deep admiration for him. There are moments when there are certain sort of some of Stephen's humor is peculiar to him, and finding ways to make that work. But yeah, what are you going to gainsay Steven Spielberg and say I know better than him? No, I'm not. not for a moment. And it's interesting because I also got to work very closely with Bob Zemeckis, and Bob Zemeckis as a producer was interestingly different. I mean, also at the time my wife Wendy and I were writing a movie that he was producing that I went on to direct, and he would suggest stuff, and I remember we had one long discussion about the third act, and then we went away and realized that the things that he'd suggested aren't going to work. And so we'd gone through and made a chart on a board to explain why his idea didn't work, and then the idea we were proposing. And we went and had another meeting with him and said, so what we talked about last time wasn't really working. And he said, oh God, I hope you came up with something better than that shit. And it's like, oh, okay. You know, where Stephen tended to be like, no, this is what I want you to do. You know, it wasn't so much of a, that said, I mean, I'm sure had I had a better idea, I could have argued with him. He wasn't completely dictatorial. But yeah, man is somewhat of a genius, so it would be hard to really say I've got a better idea than you.
Neil, would you like to ask a second question?
Yes. Here's my second, more controversial question. With the current state of Hollywood, with remakes, reboots, and sequels, if you were given a chance to return to the Balto franchise, what would do anything different? Would you change some things or to expand upon the series?
I don't know. I was never consulted when they did the video sequels. In fact, I've honestly never seen them. So I mean, the trouble is that Balto as a story is a single story. It is an event, and there's there's an end to that event, and it has its basis in history, which is part of why I found it so sort of attractive as a story. I don't know that it's really a franchise idea. You know, you got something like the Shrek movies, which I've worked on most of them. That was an idea where, okay, the initial story is a guy kind of coming to terms with actually addressing his own emotional needs and getting over his it's a classic need wins out over want. What he says he wants is to be left alone, but what he actually needs is love and companionship. It still leaves a lot of room for that character to continue to grow, very successfully in Shrek 2, less so Shrek 3, quite good in Shrek 4. I thought that was a good movie, and I hope Shrek 5 will continue, because he has children, he has the children grow up, these kind of things. So in a sense, the character still has somewhere to go. I don't know that the Balto thing has that kind of Balto himself, apart from gaining confidence in himself, he doesn't have the big turn that happens, as Zemeckis would tell me, there's a pivotal character in the movie. It isn't necessarily the main character. In fact, most of Zemeckis's movies, it's not. With Back to the Future, the pivotal character is the dad. He becomes a different person than he was because of having known Marty, but Marty essentially doesn't change. And in many ways, Balto doesn't change. What he changes is the townspeople. So I can't see the franchise in Balto. I mean, that said, if somebody wanted to offer me money to do it, I'd do it, because I'm a whore and and I like money. But yeah, it's some things are more obviously suited to being what I call number movies. You can find more. I mean, one of the movies that I'm surprised in a way they managed to make a franchise out of is the Kung Fu Panda series, which again, I've worked on all of those, because really the story is this nerdy kind of basement dweller character who actually becomes powerful. And once he's become powerful, it's like, well, you've done the story now, that's it. It's I'm afraid, to me, it's rather like superhero movies. There is only one superhero movie, and that is the origin story. And once you've done the origin story, where are you going to go after that? I'm not a huge Mighty Marvel fan. I've seen a lot of them, but I don't really care. You know.
Wonderful, thank you, Simon. Wait, I have got a couple of questions about the sequel, which I think you just answered in a nutshell, because obviously you haven't seen them. Which I don't want to state anything which might result in everyone turning their mics off and shouting at me, because the sequels bring quite a lot of mixed views over. But I would be interested to one day hear your opinion on it as the creator, and I hope that you. Well, no, you probably will end up quoting The Godfather of "Look how they massacred my sweet boy."
Same brainwave.
But
Yeah, in a way, I've sort of deliberately not seen them, because you know, look, they're still made by people who you know, are working hard and doing a good job. And I don't know, you know, the thing you can never know from the outside is what pressures were on the filmmakers when they were making the film. I'm very wary of making disparaging remarks about, partly because they come back to bite you later, but you know, you just don't know. The business is a business. The budget very much dictates how much time you can spend developing the story, or you may have just been given a script and you may be in you know, a production company and just said, like, here it is, make this, you know, and you've got 26 weeks to make it in, go. And so yeah, it's, the sequels were very much made for direct to video. They weren't even on the kind of budget range that we were working with. You know, I don't work in television, but I have admiration for people who manage to make television work. It's you know, incredibly difficult on the kind of the scales and budgets that they, you know, the time scales and budgets that they have to work on. And it's a very, very different kind of business. So yeah, it's probably best that I simply don't see those sequels, because I'm pretty sure I won't like them. And you know, I've got to be honest, I have a hard time watching a lot of animated movies, because being on the inside of it, you know, a lot of the time you look at it and you cringe. And I don't want to be saying, oh, I thought that was rubbish, because yeah, I don't know what the people who were making it had to go through to do what they did. We all do the best job we can. As Frank Marshall said, you know, you should get a medal just for finishing one of these damn things, you know, let alone if it turns out to be any good.
I think, I mean, to talk positively of it, because I think you hit the nail on the head about not knowing the pressures and the deal behind the crew who actually have to produce it. I mean, they certainly achieved a lot, I think, with the budgets which they had. I mean, the animation is clearly direct to video, but you know, they did make an effort to try and match the character designs and the movement. They managed to get Mark Hamill as one of the voices. They managed to get David Carradine as one of the voices. So you know, I think they probably did the best they could with the resources they had.
It's I'm sure they you know, they put all their love and effort into it. So you know,
absolutely. And having rewatched Spirit recently, just to bring that back up again, I almost wonder if they took that as the style of animation which Amblimation might have used if they had produced a sequel, because there's a lot more sort of cell shading in the sequels. It's sort of a little bit more modernized. It gives, obviously it didn't have a budget of Spirit, and it's not going to have the quality either as a result, but it certainly had that feel about it, in my opinion. So they definitely tried. They definitely tried hard. And I'll stop waffling in a moment, but the director did actually make a effort to join this group and actually consult us on the films as well, which was actually a really nice gesture from them as well. So yeah. Right, Angela, I think Simon might have answered one of your questions in general, but you've got specific questions for him.
Yeah, one of them kind of piggybacked off of kind of Neil got to it for me. So,
okay.
I guess I'll just read this one question then. What were your thoughts on Disney's Togo, if you saw it, and is there anything in the film that you wish you included in Balto?
Yeah, I quite liked it. It was an interesting film because it was sort of a bit of an animated movie. It was you know, I thought when it started it's going to be a you know, a straight up kind of live action adventure, and it was a little bit more animation in its kind of extreme. Difficult to describe what I mean, but there were bits which you felt like this seems a little unrealistic, shall we say. Um, but generally, I liked it a lot, and it was Willem Dafoe, wasn't it? Was the lead in that? He did a great job, and yeah, I mean, I really I like the fact they made the movie because it actually does point out that was the real hero, and you know, our movie is a terrible aberration of the truth. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked it. You know,
It's they definitely followed some of Leonard Sapella's later recounts in life. His stories definitely got elaborated on as he got older. But yeah, it was a great movie in my opinion, and I burst into tears at the end. I'm not afraid to admit it that I saw the Togo appear on the cliff, and my favorite dog had just gone, and it was a bit too much to watch at that moment in
Yeah, it
time.
was nice to get,
Oh.
nice to get you crying instead of me for once at the end of the film.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, look.
Actually, there is for the one Neil kind of added one point, but there is like maybe a technical question I'd like to ask then.
sure.
Okay, like my question was basically coming at it for not if you were to do a remake, but if you were to make the movie completely again today, how would it be different in terms of animation and techniques? You know, since we've had a big jump in technology, maybe that your budget would have gone further. How would that
Oh
have
yeah,
changed?
absolutely. Yeah, I mean CG stuff. You know, for starters, it doesn't involve as many people to make an animated feature as it used to. I mean, you still get an awful lot, but you know, when you look at like, I think it's like 400 people in the credits of Prince of Egypt, and you, I don't know, about half or three quarters that number now. You know, the armies of in-betweeners, assistants and in-betweeners and stuff. It is generally less, although I mean it has to be said, the thing that is happening now is schedules are getting shorter and shorter, so you're actually you tend to have quite a lot of people now just because you're trying to get the whole movie done in a year and a half instead of the 3 years that it ought to be given. But yeah, I mean, if we were going to do it today, it would have to be done CG. And I mean, the interesting thing is, you know, CG for many years was chasing after doing stuff photoreal, and all of the tools that were originally designed were to try and create photorealism so you could do visual effects for live action movies. But what's been happening just in the last like 5 years or so is looking for styles that are outside of photoreal. So I was blown away by Into the Spider-Verse. I actually did board some stuff on Into the Spider-Verse, most of which got cut out again, but there was a whole bit where they go to Aunt May's house and the bad guys appear. At one point they thought they wanted a big action sequence there, and so I ended up boarding like an 8-minute action sequence, which all got cut back, or most of it got cut back out again. But the look of the movie, I remember seeing like the first couple of test shots that they did and just thinking, holy crap, this is fantastic, because it's embracing the nature of animation and saying, yeah, we don't have to try and make it look like it's a real thing, and in fact it's better if it isn't. And yeah, and like I say, working on Puss in Boots 2, where they deliberately went off into a style that looked very much like it was painted rather than CG modeled. And yeah, I had tremendous admiration for that. And there's a thing which is going to come out in a couple of years' time that I did a lot of boarding on, that mentioned the Forgotten Island, which is probably the favorite movie I've worked on in the last 10 years. Unbelievably creative and clever movie. This is something Joel Crawford and Daniel Mercado, who they took over Croods 2 and made that movie. Then they did Puss in Boots 2, and then Forgotten Island is actually their own creation. They wrote this themselves and have done the whole amazing job of like pushing that through and getting people to believe in it, and doing, you know, countless kind of proposals and presentations, and it is one of the most sort of surprising and you know, creative animated movies I've seen, let alone had the privilege to work on. That has you know, some extraordinary swings at some of it is not dissimilar to things they did in Demon Hunters just recently. Some of that sort of going off into anime conventions. And there was a little bit of that in Puss in Boots 2, where they went off into things which were much more abstract. So I forget where we started this conversation, but oh, it was about, yeah, if I did Balto again. Yes, I mean, I think there's ways of doing it even on a very limited budget, because I think, for instance, I generally don't watch television animation, but oh my God, I saw Blue-Eyed Samurai. One of my daughters forced me to watch it, and like it only took me an episode to realize, holy cow, you know, they have understood, okay, here's our budget limitations, and we're going to design something that works within those limitations. And I have all kinds of admiration for that show, because you just look at it and go, yeah, there's nothing else that looks like it. You know, really, really clever. Plus, I like the fact it's a grown-up story. It's not Care Bears. Nothing against Care Bears. If you like Care Bears, it's not my speed, you know.
It's and even more impressive that although it had an Asian cast for the voice actors, it was mostly animated, I believe, by a French studio.
Yeah.
But the attention to detail would fool you into thinking it was a Japanese studio.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It was absolutely incredible.
And yeah, real cultural sensitivity and yeah, research and attention. Likewise, oh God, what was it called? Arcane. Man, that blew me away as well. Like, you know, that was all CG, but treated in a way that didn't look as, you know, so pure CG as you often see these days. Yeah, the design of that, again, French studio. Those guys really know design.
Right, Togo, aka Stefano. I think you wanted me to read the message out, but I think Simon's kind of covered it with the Spielberg talk. Do you want me to go ahead with that? Do you want to turn your mic on?
Let me check chat. Well,
no, he hasn't turned his mic on. So I don't know if you can add anything to what's been said already, Simon. Stefano, who is his lovely Balto avatar down here, he asked, as Spielberg was the producer, what was his influence in the creation of the story and the movie itself?
The story initially was a thing that actually Bonnie Radford and, sorry, let me just check my notes, Doug Wood, who were the development animation development department at Amblin, they found this script, and they sent it to Phil and me, and we read it, and we were very enthusiastic about it and could see this as a real classic animated movie. And as I say, Spielberg had resistance to it, not from the storytelling side, but just he thought visually it was going to be dull, because it's just going to be dogs running around in snow, and that's not going to be very interesting. And he hadn't kind of accounted for how much artistic liberty you can take with color when you're painting these things. You're not just going out into the wilderness with a camera and taking photographs. So yeah, I mean, as a live action movie, it probably would have been pretty limited in color scope and so on. So you know, once we showed him all these beautiful pieces of artwork that Hans Barker had done, he got on board and realized. So the process of actually making, the way we were doing animated movies then, we had a studio based in London, in glorious Acton, the murder capital of London at the time. And we would so we would do storyboards, and actually I do a little show and tell thing here. This is I thumbnailed the movie. Hang on, let's get the camera where you can see it.
Oh yeah,
So,
thank you.
So yeah, I did. Ooh, sorry, there we go. I did all kinds of thumbnails of the
Oh
whole
wow.
thing.
Look at that.
And then we would draw these up. So you can tell some of these are just like,
Yeah.
you know, you can freeze
Oh,
frame
wow.
this later and recognize a
Yeah,
lot of the
I can
shots.
see it. That's the ravine. Yeah.
And quite a lot of the sort of
Yeah.
design and so on. These are all my sketches. And
Oh, wow.
sometimes very extensive.
Wow.
Yeah.
Or panning of stuff. But anyway, we would then take the the finished boards, slightly cleaned up from this, and cut them together into animatics, where the music that was scratch music used, lifted from other scores from other movies, and sound effects. And one of the things that Nick Fletcher and Sim Evans Jones, who went on to be the editor on the Shrek movies and so on, they were very, very good at building a really good soundscape as well, because sound does an enormous amount to support and kind of help bring storyboards to life. And so we build it in sequences and then send off these like 4-minute sections of the movie to Spielberg, who would then watch those. Mostly he'd watch them, I think, with his kids in the evenings, and he'd write notes, and then he would call up like the next day as he was driving into work. So we get these sometimes slightly spotty phone calls with him because he's driving through the Sepulveda Pass and along the 101 freeway on his cell phone, and he's obviously got a list of notes that he's holding up on his steering wheel as he's driving. So you're thinking, oh my God, I hope we're not responsible for the death of Steven Spielberg, and yeah, but he has an amazing ability to remember things, visual things. So all you'd have to do is like a little reminder. Oh yes, there was that thing when you get to that shot, and there's this and this and this. Do a thing like this, or so he would give detailed feedback on every sequence, kind of very, very quickly after he'd seen the thing. And so yeah, and then sometimes you do a revision to the thing and send it to him again, and so yeah, there's a sort of approval process of Stephen saying, yeah, that's great, let's put that into production. So yeah, he was very involved. I have to say his strength as a producer is more in the specific filmmaking of, like, here's how to help build that sequence and make it better. Here's some good shots you could add in. Here's a place where you don't need to do that, or you could go straight from this to that, or and incredibly powerful visual imagination, like really, like nobody you've ever met, and relishes animation because there are no restraints. It's like you really can, if you can imagine a shot, you can make it. It's not a thing where, oh my God, we can't build a camera rig that's going to be able to deliver that idea. It's going to be too complicated and difficult, or just impossible. Animation, it literally is not. So yeah, and plus he's always been a huge animation fan. He and Michael Jackson used to exchange animation cells as Christmas presents. It had an enormous, probably still does have an enormous library of Disney artwork, and back in the days when animation cells were really a huge sums of money they'd get exchanged for. So yeah, that was kind of the process of working with Stephen on the movie.
Brilliant, thank you. Right, we've got 2 questions now from Carla. Carla Mon. That's you, yes.
Hi, Simon. Yeah, it's yeah, and yes, yes, give me a minute. Yeah, so I'm the one who interviewed you about like 10 years ago in Animation Source, and it's a pleasure to speak with you again with one of my animation idols.
Oh, nice to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, so for my first question, I just want to ask is that yeah, so we tragically lost David Stephen Cohen this year. Like he was the co-writer on Balto, and I'm curious on what contributions did he have in terms of writing Balto?
I'm sorry, what did he have in terms of writing Balto?
Oh, like what contributions he had to the script and such.
I'm really sorry. I honestly can't remember. Yeah, he wasn't part of the original story, and he wasn't part of the original, you know, the first draft, but did quite a lot of the revisions and development of new ideas. But yeah, I can't actually point to a bit and say, oh, he did that. You know, partly because you know, the writers actually were, you know, they were based in America. We had remarkably little contact. It was essentially sort of, you know, it was a written communication rather than a getting together in a room and talking things through. Or so and the other thing, of course, is it was 30 years ago, so I can't for the life of me remember. I'm very sorry not to be able to give more detail.
That's okay. You have a second question as well?
I understand.
Carla, you have a second question as well?
Yes, my second question. And I recall that like earlier you mentioned that you're originally going to co-direct Balto with your colleague Phil Niberlink, and like it was best. You said it was best that like he would finish off Way Back while you started on Balto. So was there like any additional pressures of like working first time solo as a director, or like was it more like better?
It's interesting. I mean, Phil and I tend to work more parallel than together, shall we say. To me, actually doing Balto on my own was, I think, easier. There were pressures which, had I had a colleague, might have been easier, but in terms of kind of building the film and keeping a consistent style to it and so on, I think that's easier as a solo director. You know, by contrast, directing on Prince of Egypt, where I was one of 3 directors, actually Steve and Brenda and I discovered that we complemented each other's strengths tremendously well, and were very good partners in it. It's interesting because that movie was a thing where Brenda was very definitely Jeffrey Katzenberg's choice, and I was Steven Spielberg's choice, even though Jeffrey Katzenberg had somewhat negative feelings about me because of his experiences with me on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, where I was undeniably an asshole. And he thought I was going to be the bull in the china shop who was going to destroy the studio. And so Steve Hickner was chosen as kind of the glue that was going to hold me and Brenda together and smooth the waters and be the sort of the deciding vote and all that kind of thing. And actually, as it turns out, Brenda and I became very strong friends, and I have enormous admiration for Brenda, and she in turn could see the sort of the filmmaking stuff that I brought to the process. And so, yeah, in very short order, we actually discovered a very, very strong working, you know, working team. And I think that film, particularly given the pressures that were on, you know, the nascent studio and so on, that would have been an incredibly hard film to direct solo. So I'm actually very grateful that I got to direct it with them. That said, I think if I directed a movie now, I don't want to do it as a partnership. You know, at least, you know, it would have to be a very particular person for me to say, oh, I want to work with them, rather than, you know, what tends to happen, which, or at least tended to happen then, which is that, you know, marriages were made by contract rather than because you wanted to work with the person. Just here, this is the option. You can either work with this person or you can go away and we'll find somebody else, you know.
Brilliant.
Yeah, just one closing. I just want to thank you very much for answering my questions, Simon. And
Oh, you're welcome.
yeah, like it's an honor that you were able to attend the watch party of us. And yeah, looking forward to seeing what you do with what's the title? Lost Island.
Forgotten Island. Yeah, there's a whole third act of Forgotten Island that I boarded, that Joel and Daniel literally kept for me to board because they knew they wanted me to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of the results, and I'm looking forward to seeing, you know, the final version of it. But I've seen work in progress and it's looking amazing.
Yeah. Thank you, Simon.
Brilliant. Well done, Carla. That was a good question. Right, we've got another question going back to Pat MC. He wants this one read out again. So, Angela, would you like to do this one?
Gotcha. It is often said that Balto sadly fell short in theaters due to the time release of Toy Story. How accurate do you think that belief is? Was Toy Story ever a concern while making Balto?
I literally didn't know about Toy Story when we were making Balto. In fact, the first thing I knew about Toy Story was when I started up on Prince of Egypt, and our head of story, who we had two heads of story, had Kelly Asbury and Lorna Cook, and Kelly had just come from being on the story crew of Toy Story. And yeah, I knew nothing about it. And, you know, amazing film, and it deservedly did very well because it's an incredibly good piece of storytelling. You know, you look at it now and like the CG work is, I mean, very smart that they made it about toys, because that's basically what CG could do at the time. It's like, yeah, plastic toys. That was the perfect thing. The human characters are, you know, quick intake of breath. There's like, ooh, yeah. But oh my God, what a great piece of storytelling and character work and so on. So I think I would have been a lot more afraid of Toy Story if I knew anything about it. And you know, I am not surprised that you know, everyone got annihilated when it came out. It was yeah, incredibly good movie.
It was groundbreaking, wasn't it, really? And fully deserved as well. 100% deserved. Right, the next one, well, it was labeled for me or Angela, but it happens to be my turn now, and it is actually one of my questions, so I'm quite happy with that. So unusually for an animated movie, there's no songs in Balto, obviously, apart from Reach for the Light, which, I mean, personally, I think that's one of the reasons I admired the film in the first place, because it chose to be different. But was it an artistic decision? Was it a decision from the start to avoid singing dogs?
Yeah. I one reason I really liked it is no songs. You know, we'd been forced to put a song into Fievel Goes West because obviously American Tail had Somewhere Out There, so there was going to be a somewhere out there, somewhere in there. And the song that was in there was okay. It was, you know, but yeah, it's weird that was a whole era where, yeah, animated movies had to have a song. And I mean, actually, when you look back at Toy Story, it's weird because Toy Story has all these songs in it, and it's like they didn't have to be there at all. The movie and the following movie, Toy Story 2, didn't have any songs, and you don't notice that it's a completely different kind of movie. Now, I'm not against musicals. I think Beauty and the Beast, for instance, is fantastic, and I think Little Mermaid, even though you know, the drawing can be a bit wobbly at times, Little Mermaid is still one of my favorite animated movies, simply because man, those songs are so good, and they tell the story and they move the character forward and they help describe the characters. So I'm not against musicals, but you know, the idea that animated movies have to be musicals always slightly outraged me, in the same way as, frankly, I've always been outraged by the idea that animated movies have to be kind of princess stories and fuzzy bunnies. You know, why can't we make, and this is why I like things like Blue Eye Samurai and Arcane, because, like, yep, that's just a full-on hard-hitting action thing that just happens to be animated. God bless Spider-Verse, because it's, you know, it's not trying to be you know, that, and this is not to demean terrific movies that Disney have made, but they kind of invented a genre that the technique got trapped in a genre when in fact the technique can do anything. And so, yeah, if there's any kind of political act in Balto, it's no, this is an action adventure movie that happens to be animated. And yeah, I'm very glad that there were no songs in it and that we weren't forced to put any songs into it.
Ken, I'm just going to add another question just off the back of that, just from what you were just saying. Obviously, Disney, well, the existing studios, you mentioned Don Bluth and Disney, which were the dominant ones at the time. Was it hard to create the style of Balto and not inadvertently, even accidentally, try and copy what existed already?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, the style comes from a combination of the art direction and the character design. Like I say, most of the character design came from Carlos Grengel, with some stuff by Nicholas Marlett. And one of the things that Carlos is rather good at is looking for something which gets outside of, you know, the Disney standard thing. So yeah, I mean, there is a conscious effort there to say we don't want it to look like you know, Fox and the Hound. We're looking for something that has a slightly different graphic feel. And yeah, you just, you know, you have a bunch of talented artists who, you know, all feel the same way. It's like, yeah, Fox and the Hound's all very well, but we'd like to do something that's actually a bit more interesting and has more dynamics to it, and yeah, a bit more style.
Wonderful. Chase, Simon has covered your train question while we're watching it, but would you like to ask him anything around that, or anything to do with it, or just your question itself?
Yes, I actually had one, kind of in relation to that. I mean, initially, you know, the whole railroad or the train thing was a big one, because I mean, I'm actually a steam train engineer, and I actually work at Disneyland's railroad, and I work with those vintage steam locomotives. But I'm also a bit of an aviation guy. I mean, a couple of us here are, you know, we're all into like mechanical engineering and history and whatnot. But the plane in the movie that was trying to take off but ended up canceling, you know, just decided to just abort takeoff. Was that plane modeled after anything, or was there anything like that design during the 1920s?
I think it was. I don't know that we actually ever managed to locate what the plane was, because there were literally two airplanes in Alaska at the time, and both of them had been dismantled for the winter. They never actually even tried to take off. They just, you know, they'd have had to build the planes back together because they were stuck away in some shed. So I think the plane, I don't know what it's directly based off, but it's certainly era correct, if not actually specifically the male planes that were there. And as I say, I don't think we actually managed to locate what the specific planes were, but you know, it's a post World War One kind of light bomber sort of a thing. But yes, I honestly, I'm sorry, I I can't give you chapter on
No worries.
verse. In the same way as I don't know what the train was. It's certainly the right era of train, but whether we actually found the real thing, the right thing or not, I don't know. I can't remember now.
No worries. Thank you very much, Simon. Really appreciate your time.
Sure, you're welcome.
Simon, can I just check in with you quickly to make sure you're okay with timing and stuff? Because obviously we've gone over a bit. We're obviously going to be more than happy to carry on, but
all right, fair enough. I think let's call it about half an hour if you know that I can go. Where are we? I'm at 2:30 in my time. So
okay.
yeah, maybe call us at 3 because
no problem. We are doing quite well, so it's not too bad.
Well, I got to say, you know, I'm just kind of slightly overwhelmed by the existence of you guys and the fact that this movie has meant as much as it has to you, and I'm sort of incredibly grateful that you exist and that this has continued to be meaningful because. Yeah, you know, I loved the movie when we were making it, and and the studio as a whole was tremendously behind. I mean, the animation studio was very behind it and really cared about it. But you know, it's kind of lost off into the sands of time, and so to find a bunch of people for whom it really is significant and has had, you know, profound effects on your lives is really touching. It's really great.
I think we will, as I said earlier, find it very hard to find the words to sort of say how we feel about you kindly giving up your Saturday morning and now afternoon for us. It's just truly wonderful. I will streamline some of this then, so we'll prioritize.
Yeah, because
Shadow
we got a couple in the Discord too.
Okay, no problem. Let's give Shadow an opportunity. Shadow, can you choose 2 of your questions which you'd like to ask? Any of them?
All right. Okay, so I recall in some of the concept art there was branding as snowballs and characters such as Chester.
Yeah.
Was this just a code name, or was there a separate production going on?
No, it was literally just a code name, and actually it was a code name that Spielberg came up with. I think because quite reasonably, you know, if it gets out that you're making Balto, somebody else may take a look at the story and go, well, that's a public domain story, and we could make a film about that. So particularly at that time in the 90s, almost everything was operating on a code name. I mean, actually, Disney still do that. My elder daughter just was working on Zootopia 2, which ran under the code name Nest for many years. So yeah, no, Balto was always Snowball was Balto and vice versa. It was just to kind of keep secret that that's what we were working on.
And one more of yours, Shadow. Would you like to ask one of your other questions?
Okay, why not? Is still a husky or a malamute?
I think Steel is a Malamute because they're generally bigger and heavier and stronger, shaggier creatures. But yeah, that I believe was the intention. I mean, I'm not the expert on these. You know, ask Adam. I'm sure he'd be able to tell you more than me.
Well, if you want the geeky answer, he's the size of a Malamute, but Malamutes don't have blue eyes. That's a husky trait. Apologies. Thank you, Shadow. Right, have we got Yukon here still? No, Yukon's not here. Oh, I heard
There's something, yeah.
Yukon
Wait,
is
there
here.
it is.
Yeah, Yukon, do you want to ask your question? Right, silence. Okay. Was there any plans to follow the true story closer and include other iconic dogs such as Togo and the relay teams?
No, I was aware even at the time of making, because I did read up kind of the original newspaper accounts and so on. I was aware that we were bastardizing the story considerably. You know, the logic behind this is that this is, after all, Grandma Rosie's version of the story, and firstly, she was 4, and secondly, she was very ill when it happened. So, you know, if she's a little inaccurate, you can excuse that. But yeah, it's a very fantasized version of the story. You know, in some ways, I feel sort of guilty about the you know, bastardizing the truth, but you know, I don't know. I mean, the real story is gripping and is fascinating and so on, but is kind of a very different. The trouble is, it doesn't have the wonderfully sort of cathartic ending that if you're following Togo, it's so yeah, the story has been used as a jumping off point, and I think possibly based on a true story that we put up at the end was maybe stretching the point rather. It should have been inspired by a true story, might have been a better thing to put on there.
Of course. If it's okay with you, Angela, I'm just going to whiz through this for Simon's timing, if that's okay. So,
yeah, no problem.
I'm just going to prioritize people who are here who want to ask a question. So, Omni, are you with us, Omni? Can't see from the list.
Good question. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, you can. Yes, we can hear you.
I don't know why you couldn't hear me just now. Sorry.
Oh, apologies. Obviously, your question's been asked, but as you got your mic on, do you want to just say hi to Simon and something nice?
Yes, hi Simon. I have got one question that actually spawned while we were watching the movie. It's been a big debate in our community for a long time regarding the white wolf. Was it Balto's mother, father, a spirit wolf, just a sign, part of his imagination? Now, and it's just amusing that you said so. It could it be his father, or could it be a sort of spirit? And then there's also going back earlier in the movie where Steele jokes about, "I've got a message for your mother." Is that an indication that it would not that Balto's mother was the so Balto's mother would have been the husky or dog?
Yeah, I think that was the sort of intention of that line, is that Balto's mother obviously got out and not to mix the metaphor, but catted about with you know, some wolf out there. So yes, the message for your mother and then howling like a wolf is clearly meant to impugn his parentage. Yeah. But yeah,
that could also have been ambiguous.
Yeah, I mean, it could be your mum's a wolf. That would be another way of reading that line, is yeah, yo mama.
Thank you. I think you've answered the question.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, moving swiftly on then for time. We've obviously talked about the original voice actors versus the final voice actors. I'm going to kind of mix this in with some of the deleted scenes questions, which again you've kind of covered already. I suppose the big important question I've got is, does any of this footage exist? And are we ever likely to be able to see it? Ever?
You know, the trouble is, when a movie gets finished, all of the properties of that movie belong to the studio, and mostly they go off and get archived, and it really depends very much on the studio and how much they value the property as to how well they archive it. Actually, I missed out on a chance. There was a thing that the story department at DreamWorks recently did, where they did a visit to the Universal archives, and they actually dug out some boxes of, for instance, Prince of Egypt, which I think was rather carefully archived. But yeah, but the trouble with deleted scenes is, what media are those even stored on? So probably the deleted scenes, for instance, like the barrel scene, that probably never made it beyond Avid, and so those will be stored in some sort of digital file that is only readable through Avid, and I don't even know whether Avid today reads the files that Avid read literally 30 years ago.
Mm.
So I think the possibility that any of those things resurface is practically zero, because apart from the very slight possibility that you might lay your hands on like a videotape, and even then, I'm trying to think, but I think the videotapes we were sending to Stephen were probably on U-matic format. And I don't know whether we'd have been converting them to, we probably converted them to NTSC at Amblimation in London and sent in the tape. Yeah, these things were, couriered across. But yeah, where those tapes ended up, God only knows. So yeah, I'm afraid that the chance of any of that stuff surfacing is effectively nil. And I don't have any of it. That was before the days of keeping stuff. Since I started personally working digitally, I have an awful lot of stuff that I've done that I've kept, even if it ended up getting cut out of the movie. And there were things, for instance, when I was working on Time Machine, I got a whole lot of stuff sent to me on DVDs, because that was a convenient format by then. But yeah, Balto was sort of weirdly only just in the beginning of the digital age, and yeah, where that stuff, and then the other thing is, like, it wasn't a particularly valued property, so where that would have been stored and whether they could even find it if they searched for it, I don't know.
It's well, perhaps you could keep your ear to the ground for us.
Sure. Yeah.
I think I mean, the spirit behind this question, which I'm sure a lot of people think about, is Balto is a wonderful, well-rounded film, but obviously it just leaves you wanting more. We've always craved more, and never, like I mentioned earlier, never having that special edition DVD, which Disney's so good at producing, where you get to see all the production stuff and all the deleted stuff and all the, it's it just sort of leaves you going, we need more.
Well, yeah, and there was never a behind the scenes crew coming around the studio, because yeah, we were this grotty little studio on 2 floors of a building just by Acton Park, southern side of Acton Park in London, which nobody in their right mind even goes there. So yeah, we were very much under the radar, and there was no kind of thought of kind of doing behind the scenes recording or which you look at now, it's kind of sad. I think I have a few photographs that have emerged as a sort of there's a website that I think on Facebook that is I Survived Amblimation.
Oh, really?
And it's basically lots of photographs of quite young people standing around in this forest of IKEA furniture, because we basically had an open plan studio, and the only way we could afford to build enough desks is we basically use that IKEA I forget what it's called, but it's the sort of ladder framework, and we had a carpenter cut animation discs into the sort of the drawing board that because the carpenter actually said, look, I can't make this furniture for the price that you can buy it from. I can't even buy the wood for the price you can buy this from IKEA. So yeah, we must have been the most appalling fire hazard, because piles of paper and then all this wood. Yeah, that place could have gone up like a tinderbox.
Wow. It's a storage unit now. It's if a building's still there, it's now one of these big self-storage places.
Oh, right. Well, it wasn't a particularly great building. I remember we had a real heat wave in London. I'm trying to remember which year it was, but it was like 92 or something like that, and we brought in a whole bunch of air conditioning units, which literally melted the power cables off the wall where they came into the building. It was not a great building. Anyway,
fantastic. Right. Right. So sticking with the voice actors, this is partially a question from somebody who's can't be here tonight. When obviously Kevin and Jim and Bridget re-recorded their lines, did it really change the characters as such, rather than just putting a different voice on them? Did it give them a different feel?
Yes, I mean you have a limit on how much you can change the performance because you're pretty much stuck with matching what the animation has done. So, but certainly, as you mentioned, Adam, that there's a quality to Kevin Bacon's voice that has kind of it's not exactly a manly edge, but it has a kind of a bit more of a rough and tumble edge. It certainly brought a more characterful feel to the audio. And I think there are things that Kevin did manage to do, even with the restrictions of matching it into existing animation, that make quite a difference. And Bridget Fonda's stuff was nice. I don't know that it was significantly different. What was the young woman who played it before? I think had been Jennifer Blanc-Bean.
Okay.
But who did a really nice performance. I think in that case, it was actually literally, we want a more significant name on the marquee. And that's not to in any way impugn what Bridget did. I thought she did a terrific job and was lovely to work with. But yeah, I think that sometimes just having the name on the poster is the thing that studios really want. I mean, God knows on Prince of Egypt we had Danny Glover do the speaking lines for Jethro, and like the entire character of Jethro is the song, and it was Stokes Mitchell, who's big Broadway star. I forget what his first name is, but he did the singing voice, and he could have done the 3 lines or something. And yeah, I remember we actually flew to New York to record Danny, who, bless him, was lovely. He was great, and he did a great job. But it was literally like it took 20 minutes, and he said, "Is that it?" It's like, yeah, sorry, that's it. Well, okay, they're paying me to do this, so that's fine. And God bless him, he showed up and he did publicity for the movie. So, but yeah, that was very much, we wanted that was because of having the name on the marquee.
Brilliant. Right, we have actually answered a lot of the questions which we had lined up anyway. So is Rudolph still here? Have we got Rudolph?
Yeah, okay.
Where are you, Rudolph?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. And I'm looking for your
middle on top, middle on top.
Middle on top. Okay. Oh, yeah, there you are. Yeah. There's Rudolph.
Okay, first off, Mr. Wells, greetings from Germany. Yeah, I think the question has already been answered.
Oh, apologies.
But I wanted to ask, why exactly was Phil Collins, and how exactly did it happen that Phil Collins got casted for the voice acting for Luke and Mook, but not sing a song?
Well, it was literally I mean, we sort of forget now, but Phil Collins actually has an acting career. He was in, he's a small part in Hook, but he was also, oh God, he was actually the star of at least one movie. And oddly enough, before he was a drummer for Genesis, he was actually a child actor. He was in the West End production of Oliver. He was the Artful Dodger. And so he's always been an actor. And I think it just appealed to him, the idea of doing a voice for animation. And I don't know quite, I think he knew the casting director and had said, hey, if you know any animated movies that want a voice, I'd love to do one. And so she in turn put us in touch. And Phil said, have you got a part? And I said, well, why don't we send you the script and you can just kind of have a go at anything you fancy, because God knows, yeah, I'd seen him in a few movies and knew he was good and thought his it'd be interesting to see what kind of things he produced. He did a thing for, like, there's the big old gruff dog who's kind of in charge of the dogs in the dredger, and he did a sort of very much a British kind of brigadier voice for him, which actually very like the voice that ended up being in that Aardman movie, Chicken Run. You know, I flew bombers in the war, that sort of voice, which was great, but it was completely unsuitable for the movie. It was very good voice, but not for this movie. So yeah, we end up muck and luck with the things that it's like, yeah, I just loved that voice, that idea so much that but yeah, he not doing the song, I think the song, you know, it was always going to be written by James Horner. James Horner, that's kind of his contract. He's going to write, because, you know, you got a good chance of getting an Oscar nomination with the song from a movie. So, you know, he's always going to write the song for the movie he's done the score for. That's a whole negotiation at a very high level that I have nothing to do with. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of this, but I don't think Phil does, you know, just the voice performance of other people's songs, and also just the negotiation of you know, rights and residuals and all of that. Those things are hellishly complicated. I mean, when they got Mariah Carey and this is the song from Prince of Egypt that they ended up doing the radio version of. It was Mariah Carey and, oh God, I don't know if anyone can remember, but you know, two huge name superstar singers, and it was a real coup to get them both together on a recording. But they'd only do that if we got a particular producer, and the producer would only do it if he got to write the middle eight, so that he made some money actually out of the thing beyond, you know, as one of the composers, not just. And that in turn really annoyed and upset, quite reasonably upset, Stephen Schwartz. So yeah, the negotiations on these things are horrific, and I want no part.
Okay. I had a second question, if I can still ask that one.
Oh, only if you're quick, Rudolph. We're running out of time.
Yeah, sure. This is more like a little bit of a fun fact, but I wanted to know what your opinion is about this, because in Germany we have a very funny voice dubbing scenario that a lot of characters share the same voice actor. So, for example, in the German voice dub, actually, Balto has the same voice actor from Darth Maul in Star Wars and Master Yoda. And it continues. Steel shares the same voice actor from Scar from The Lion King in Germany as well.
Well, that makes sense, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because when they do the dubs of animated movies, it very often, yeah, uses well, there's a tendency now to try and get sort of the biggest star names that you can, but certainly, yeah, there's a group of actors who are known, and they're the ones you're always going to turn to. You know, and dubbing a movie is a particular skill set. It's a, you know, some actors can really do it and other actors not so much. So I can understand why, yeah, you're going to end up with a group of guys. It's in the same way as Jim Cummings. It's like every third animated character is Jim Cummings. Now, that man happens to be able to sound like 300 different characters, but yeah, you know, it's pretty remarkable to have a movie that Jim Cummings hasn't done a voice on. So I'm sure, yeah, when you're in the world of like, well, we have to dub this movie, yeah, there's a bunch of go-to actors you're going to turn to and say, hey, you know, are you available?
Be prepared. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
That was
well,
very nice to hear.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rudolph, and thank you, Simon. Right, let's streamline this then. That's basically the questions which I've had on my paper.
Can I grab a few for
Angela,
Discord?
Yeah, Angela, do you want to just prioritize
Someone
one or
let's,
two?
yeah, let me do one from I'll read it for them and just make it a little faster. Emberwolf, I'm going to ask her last question. Was Balto's design based off of Togo because his markings are kind of similar? Like he has Balto's name, but he looks like Togo, or is that just a coincidence?
Coincidence, actually. Yeah, the Balto. I mean, the real design of Balto is, I mean, the actual dog Balto is just about the most nondescript dog possible. He's sort of blank brown, no markings whatsoever. Yeah, there you go. Right.
There he is.
Yes.
And so, yeah, we did actually find that out early on. And so, yeah, and markings of huskies are so much more attractive that, yeah, we played around. Originally, he didn't have the markings over his eyes, but we discovered just through doing sort of both the storyboards and some test animation that it made it much, much easier to control the volume and turn the face when you actually had like a clear line or clear construction there that you could move in space. So yeah, but the design was entirely for the sort of the function of it and the aesthetics. It wasn't based on either or on any of the original dogs.
Nice. Let me see if I can do one from. Hold on one sec. Policio, I'm going to. He wanted to read his question, but I can speed things up.
If he does, Policio want to say it?
Hey, can I? I would
Sure,
love to.
sure.
Hello, greetings from Argentina, by the way.
Oh, hi.
I have a question and a thank you. On the side of the question, I would like to ask you, what was your reaction when you first received the script? Of course, you said or you mentioned like, oh yes, this story can work as an animated film, but what was your personal feeling towards the script? And as a thank you, I would like to thank you because this came right on the exact time I needed in my life, and it gave me it helped me a lot throughout a very dark moment, and I found these amazing people in the middle of the 2000s. So I'm very thankful for that in a personal level way. Sorry for hoarding time.
That's terrific. Yeah. Okay, so the question was can someone remind me what
when you received the script.
Oh,
like,
yes, when I got the script, yeah.
And you gave it a read.
Yeah, no, I mean, the reaction was, oh, okay, this is, a classic underdog story. This is a rejected character who then wins out through his own determination and strength of character, and it's a very rewarding ending. And you're definitely going to be cheering. You could tell just from reading the script. Yeah, by the time he comes in, rolls into town with the antidote and saves the children, of course you're going to be cheering. So it was kind of, I mean, to me, it was a sort of no-brainer. It's like, this is a very obviously powerful, heroic story. It ticks a lot of the boxes of the hero of 1,000 faces, that Campbell book. And yeah, so it's with clearly a lot of room for comedy in secondary characters and all of the things, all the things you're looking for in an animated adventure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right. I think we'll have to give Simon a massive thank you for everything. Do you want one more? Sorry, I was jumping the gun.
Yeah, no problem. We got one from Salty Cheerios.
One more.
She actually wants to show some fan art she did. Like she put it in the.
I can do that.
You go to the BaltoCon room right here, and near the bottom, it's like a nice piece of artwork right here, and it was just done on a. Yeah, that one.
Oh yeah.
She really wants to show you that.
That's very sweet.
Want to make sure we showed that before we before we went.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well done. Very good. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, Simon, if you my light's gone off. That's a hint, it's clearly a hint. Simon, if you don't mind, I'd just like to read a few words, and then we'll bring this to a well-deserved close for yourself. So I wrote this obviously before we started, so we've obviously covered some of it, so I'll just go for it. Obviously, thank you so much. Oh, it's come on. It's come back again. I'll start again. Thank you so much, Simon, for joining us today. It really does mean the world to all of us. And as I said earlier, I don't think we ever once imagined early on that we would ever have this opportunity to sit down with not only the director of our favorite film, but also, you know, what you represent, being Spielberg's right-hand man as a director, and everything around it is truly incredible. I mean, obviously, sadly, Balto didn't perform as originally hoped in the theatres. I can only imagine that you guys, the production crew, would have felt obviously awful about that, having put so much love into the production, because it clearly is a movie which is made from passion and love. It did obviously get a little bit better with the video sales, but I hope that your experience here today, having met dedicated fans in this environment, compensates you a little bit for that, and Balto continues to impact people on a large scale. Balto has brought the real life stories of the Alaskan frontier back to a worldwide audience. This year also being the 100th anniversary of the Serum Run, we can celebrate man's timeless bond with dogs, remembering the 150 of the goodest of good boys and girls who brought vital medicines while enduring the harshest of conditions. Though Balto may be loosely based on historical events, it has always sparked the interest for those who want to learn more, immortalising those brave mushers and hero dogs. Everyone here has a different story of how these movies mean to them and how it's impacted their lives. Balto is more than an animated movie. It's inspired careers. It's a wholesome story that's brought comfort to those in difficult times, and it's created lifelong friendships as well. It has inspired some to seek a career in animation or encouraged others to work with animals. It has inspired some to seek, in some cases, people have taken part in professional dog sledding and even walked with wolves. Others have been inspired by the soundtrack and become professional musicians working on high-profile films and games. We have attended each other's weddings, and some have even found love through the community, and it wouldn't have been so if it wasn't for Balto. But above all, it has given us a network of lifelong friendships spread around the world. There are people here today from all four corners of the globe and united over a movie that you brought to life 30 years ago. For all of these reasons, on behalf of everyone here, I want to say a massive thank you to you and to the talented production crew who worked tirelessly to create Balto. Thank you for not only being here, but thank you for the friendships, the communities, the movie with a good heart, and above all else, and I'm going to say it, guys, I'm going there. Thank you, Balto. We would have been lost without you.
Well, I gotta say, guys, it's been terrific meeting you all. This has been a really fun thing to do, and yeah, thank you for inviting me. And I'm astonished that the film is still relevant and it's still carried in your hearts in the way that it is. That is a beautiful thing, and actually enormously rewarding to me creatively, that there's anybody at all that is holding on to it, let alone people having such profound effects on their lives from this movie. So it's far more than I had expected the movie to do. I mean, yeah, box office is one thing, but actually changing people's lives is ultimately a lot more important. And if it's brought lifelong joy to just a few people, that's worth more than many millions of dollars at the box office from a bunch of people who aren't going to remember it. So whatever that
Bless
was.
you.
Bless you. Yeah, bless you.
But yeah, so thank you for inviting me to this. This was an interesting voyage down memory lane, and also just really rewarding getting to meet and know you guys, because this was fantastic. So thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Simon, obviously,
Thank you,
I would love
Simon.
to say to you, don't be
Thank
a
you,
stranger.
Simon.
Oh yeah. In fact,
Thank you so much for making a beautiful film.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yes.
Simon, thank you so
Honor
much,
and
sir.
thanks to you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you,
you very
Simon.
much.
We really appreciate all you did.
Let's
Thank
tell you what,
you.
everyone, turn your microphones on. Let's give Simon a massive round of applause.
Trash the whole system.
And trash the whole system.
And don't
Oh, God, I
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And let us also wish Balto a very happy 30th birthday as well. Simon, okay, brilliant. Simon, thank you. I can't say enough. Thank you. We'll send you a link to this when it's uploaded somewhere. I think Angela's going to put it
Merry
on a
Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, Simon.
Go on, get out your
Merry
system.
Christmas.
Go on, do
Happy
it,
New
do
Year.
it.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Ditto. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Okay,
Merry Christmas to you all. Yeah.
We'll send you a link
Thank
to the video when it's uploaded to.
Thank you for best movie ever.
Welcome to the Lion's Den.
Yeah, you're completely losing control of this, Adam.
I am. It's all right. I'm not their leader. Okay, guys, let's hit those microphone buttons, please. Okay, thank you, guys. I know you all want to wish Simon the best, and I think you probably realise that, Simon. We'll send you the link, as I was saying, so you can share it with people who obviously couldn't be here. I will ping you a thank you in the emails anyway, because I want to. And I'd love to say, don't be a stranger. If you would like to show your face here, whenever you are a permanent member of our group, you come across as the ultimate Balto fan, not only having made it, but you clearly love it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, guys. And yeah, I will see you sometime in the future.
Thank you, Simon.
All right.
Thank you, Simon. Have a good day.
See you to the 40th anniversary.
Absolutely. I'm there.
Thank you, Simon.
Lovely. Thank you,
Thank
Simon.
you.